Chapter 922. Lu Ping's actions completely infuriated the ice Shura that was chasing him. After the two of them exchanged blows, no less than 7 or 8 great Shuras had already fallen under Lu Ping's sword, including 2 great Shuras that were equivalent to late-stage core forging cultivators. When the ice Shura saw that it couldn't catch up to Lu Ping, it seemed to have made up its mind in its rage and suddenly stopped moving. Lu Ping thought to himself, "Oh no," and was about to turn around and rush toward the ice Shura. The ice sword in the ice Shura's hand had turned into an ice bead the size of a pellet. The ice Shura spat it out of its mouth and smashed toward the island's protective formation like lightning. Lu Ping's pair of flying swords missed, but Lu Ping didn't even look at the ice bead. After the fainting autumn sword missed, the thin water-flowing sword had already turned around from the ice Shura's back. The two swords combined and stabbed toward the ice Shura's back. The ice Shura released 18 ice walls in a row and finally managed to block the two swords. Meanwhile, screams of pain came from Frost Island behind Lu Ping. The ice bead pierced through Frost Island's protective formation in one fell swoop. 3 of the Junling cultivators behind the formation were pierced by the ice bead. The cold energy carried by the ice bead flowed through the blood vessels of the wounds and into the victim's heart space, turning them into ice sculptures. Then, as the heart space exploded, the ice sculptures shattered into ice shards. A second-generation core forging cultivator tried to stop the ice bead, but the ice bead was the ice Shura's companion spirit treasure after all. It wasn't something a late-stage core forging cultivator could stop. The ice bead directly shattered his natal artifact and went straight for his head under his despairing gaze. Just as the Junling sect was about to lose another late-stage core forging cultivator, the ice bead suddenly shot back without warning. The second-generation cultivator coughed up a mouthful of blood due to the destruction of his magic treasure, but there was no joy in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of sorrow. Originally, although this person's chances of advancing to the Dharma stage were slim, there was still a sliver of hope, giving him some hope to work hard. But now that his natal treasure had been destroyed, it had directly injured his foundation. Even if his injuries recovered in the future, the damage to his foundation would destroy his last hope of advancing to the Dharma stage. Perhaps even he himself knew that even if that sliver of hope was not extinguished, with his abilities, it was almost impossible for him to advance to the Dharma stage in the future. But sometimes, people would always rely on hope to improve their mental state. But now, this person didn't even have any hope. Although he still had over 100 years before his lifespan came to an end, these 100 years were nothing to him, and he was just a walking corpse. Looking up, he saw that Lu Xianping, who was in the sky, had somehow combined the 4 flying swords into a great sword formation. Taking advantage of the time when the ice Shura's natal treasure flew away, he had already trapped the ice Shura in the sword formation. No wonder the ice bead suddenly returned when it was about to take his life. With martial nephew Lu's unfathomable level of cultivation, if the blood Shura lost his natal treasure, perhaps he really wouldn't be a match for him. Perhaps the people in the sect who really had the hope of advancing to the Dharma stage would always be people like martial nephew Lu Xianping. His dream of advancing to the Dharma stage was just a self-deceiving dream. Junior brother Zhou, how are you? Forefather Tian Shu had sensed that something was wrong when the ice Azura suddenly attacked Frost Island with her life-bound spirit treasure. But by the time he reacted, the ice sword had already pierced through the island's protective formation and killed several people in a row. Jinren Zhou laughed bitterly and said, "No worries, I can still hold on." Tian Shu Laozu sighed and turned to walk out of the island. With Tian Shu Laozu's vision, he could see everything that had happened to Jinren Zhou. However, these things couldn't be explained away with words. Just as Tian Shu Laozu walked to the island's protective formation, a rainbow bridge had already crossed over the sea. The rainbow light flashed with intoxicating colors, but Tian Shu Laozu's eyes were dark. He reached out with his right hand, and a slingshot appeared in his hand. His left and right palms lit up, and a golden pellet was pinched into the slingshot with his left hand. With a sudden pull and release, the golden pellet turned into a golden arc in the sky, and then collided with the rainbow bridge. Ever since Tian Shu Laozu lost to Lu Ping, Tian Shu Laozu reflected on the painful experience and studied many spells and techniques. This increased his ability to adapt to the situation, and at the same time, increased his strength significantly. However, Tian Shu Grand Ancestor knew very well that this so-called increase in strength wasn't because he still had great potential. Instead, it was because his original strength hadn't been fully unleashed after entering the Avatar realm. This was also the reason why Tian Shu Grand Ancestor didn't have any offensive moves against Lu Ping. In the end, he could only rely on his cultivation base to suppress Lu Ping. But in the end, he was defeated by Lu Ping. 4 colors of the rainbow light were destroyed by Tian Shu Laozu's golden pellet, but the remaining 3 colors still collided with the island's protective formation. Tian Shu Laozu's expression was dark. At this moment, he had used up all his previous strength and had yet to recover. He forcefully condensed a spell and attacked, but it wasn't even 30 to 40% of his usual power. He only managed to knock down 2 colors, and the remaining color could no longer be stopped, and directly collided with the island's protective formation. At the core of the mother-child traction formation, spiritual master Xian Qin shook his head helplessly. He took out the stone that had been embedded into the formation plate that had already turned into pieces, and then replaced it with a supreme grade spirit stone. At the same time, there were several disciples walking around on the enormous formation plate. From time to time, they would remove the high-grade spirit stones embedded into the formation plate that had used up all their spirit energy, and replace them with high-grade spirit stones that were full of spirit energy. Only the dozen or so grooves around spiritual master Xian Qin were embedded with supreme-grade spirit stones, and spiritual master Xian Qin was personally replacing them. Underneath the formation plate, the few spirit veins that Junling had accumulated on Frost Island were also providing endless spirit energy to the formation plate. Tian Shui Laozu stood at the side and said, "Senior brother, I'm afraid that Tian Shu won't be able to hold on for long." At the side, Tian Fan Laozu didn't reply immediately. Instead, he stared for a moment before saying, "Just this much effort alone has already used up a huge amount of high-grade spirit stones and supreme-grade spirit stones. However, there's no other way. That Jade Shura is definitely hiding in the surroundings right now. The moment you make a move and get entangled by the other Mara, that Jade Shura will definitely make a move. At that time, even if I make a move, I'm afraid that I won't be able to stop the Jade Shura from breaking the formation." Tian Shui Laozu said, "But that hidden blood demon still hasn't shown himself. Even if we work together to stop the Jade Shura, that blood demon is enough to be the key to breaking the formation. Moreover, this time, Mara is attacking Frost Island en masse, but there are too few devil cultivators among them." Tian Fan Laozu was still indifferent. Tian Shui Laozu said anxiously, "Linggu sect and Soaring Feather sect are already shrinking the island's great formation. They are retreating towards the spirit vein at the center of Frost Island. Mara has already successfully landed at the place where the 2 sects are stationed." Tian Fan Laozu suddenly said, "This Linggu sect and Soaring Feather sect are really useless. However, junior sister, where do you think that Xiang Lu is right now?" Tian Shui Laozu was stunned and said, "Senior brother thinks that he will come here?" Just as Tian Shui Laozu finished speaking, a cultivator-like person dressed in snow-white clothes suddenly appeared in the sky above the Frost Island's great formation. The Jade Shura had appeared. Unlike Blood Devil Luo's red eyes, Jade Shura looked like a normal human. But she had a unique aura that was like the condensation of the original spirit. If she appeared in front of a cultivator, she would not be able to hide it. However, when they used their unique escape arts, the aura of spirit energy became the best way for them to hide their aura. It was the best way to attack and kill cultivators. The entire sea seemed to be boiling. The Jade Shura was high up in the sky, as if she was the king of the sea. The angry seawater surged as if it wanted to bury the entire Frost Island at the bottom of the sea. Boom, 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 boom. The sects that were still defending the island's great formation without retreating all collapsed the moment the Jade Shura appeared. The entire island's great formation began to shrink inwards in a strange way. As long as they could protect the large spirit stone mine in the center of Frost Island, then the defense of Frost Island could be considered a victory. Jade Shura's appearance had completely changed the situation on the battlefield. The enemy was strong, and they were weak. The cultivators of the North Sea had to quickly pull back their battle lines, abandon their previous strategy of fighting individually, and work together to fight the enemy. Perhaps that was the only way they could protect the spiritual stone mine under the siege of Devil Luo. Except for Jinling. Jinling was still guarding the outer perimeter of Frost Island, not allowing Mara to land on Frost Island from the area Jinling was stationed at. The frost cliff where the medium-sized spirit stone mine was had been built into a temporary palace by Jinling. However, the location of the palace was not far from the coast. Therefore, the other sects could retreat, but Jinling could not. This mid-sized spirit stone mine had attracted a lot of envy, jealousy, and hatred for Jinling's sect in the past few decades. This time, the cultivators hiding at the center of Frost Island could finally rejoice in Jinling's sect's misfortune. You deserve it, aren't you? Who told you to take it all for yourself? Although the cultivators of the sects would not say these words out loud, everyone understood that without the lips, the teeth would be interdependent. Without Jinling, the other sects of Frost Island would not be able to resist the siege of Mo Luo's army even if they joined forces. Therefore, the cultivators of the sects, from Laozu to the ordinary cultivators, were furious that Jinling was still stubbornly defending that medium-sized spirit stone mine. At this time, he was still guarding that spirit stone mine without letting go. Was he going to give up the large spirit stone mine on Frost Island for that medium-sized spirit stone mine? The curses gradually rose. Although Laozu did not say anything with a dark face, the disciples of his sects, including the usually prestigious core forging cultivators, also began to curse loudly. Was Jinling going to drag the entire North Sea cultivation world down for a medium-sized spirit stone mine? If they could survive this, they might have to reduce Jinling's share of this large spirit stone mine. Yes, that was how it should be. For a moment, although the cultivators of the sects still looked impassioned, their thoughts were all conveying the same thought. Even the old and steady Dharma adepts seemed to be moved. Between the looks of their eyes, it was unknown what kind of plan they were conveying that could only be understood but could not be put into words. Chapter 923. Jinling always worried about inequality rather than scarcity, and the cultivation world was no exception. Jinling's sole possession of a medium-sized spirit stone mine with abundant reserves had already made many cultivators in the North Sea envious. Now that Frost Island was being attacked by Mara, and Jinling was fighting a bloody battle for its own spirit stone mine, the first thing that came to the cultivators' minds was not to join forces to defeat the enemy, but rather to hope that this spirit stone mine would be destroyed by Mara's hands. Of course, it would be best if both sides suffered heavy losses, and Jinling would lose 1 or 2 Dharma adepts because of this, even if they were heavily injured. This was the nature of human nature, and even cultivators were no exception. Fortunately, with a great enemy in front of them, the cultivators of the various sects could not do things like backstabbing. After all, the crisis on Frost Island had not been resolved yet. At the very least, the sects understood that without the lips, the teeth would be interdependent. Therefore, after the various sects pulled back to the center of Frost Island, the protective shield of the island where Jinling was stationed and the center of Frost Island was not destroyed by the swarming Mara. Laozu of the various sects sent their cultivators to protect this path of retreat for Jinling, and Jinling also sent many of his disciples here to join forces with the cultivators of the various sects, blocking Mara who intended to cut off the connection between the two sides. Of course, the reason why the sects put in so much effort was not just because without the lips, the teeth would be interdependent. It was because when the Jade Shura appeared, there were 2 auras that rose from Jinling's garrison that made Laozu of the various sects shocked and bewildered them. They were shocked because these 2 auras were too familiar to the North Sea cultivation world's Laozu, to the point that they were horrified. The Wind and Snow Immortals. In the era when Xianling's sect still dominated the North Sea cultivation world, these 2 were the only ones in the North Sea who could defeat Laozu at the same time. They were also the most solid foundation for Jinling to restrict Xianling's sect. Even after Celestial Phenomenon Laozu became a grand adept and became the new symbol of Jinling, the name of the wind and snow immortals still shook the entire North Sea cultivation world. This was because when people thought of Zhenling, they would not only think of celestial phenomenon Laozu, but also Zhenling, who had the wind and snow immortals, had 2 Dharma adepts, and Zhenling had the most basic requirements of a large sect. However, they were puzzled. Hadn't Patriarch Tian Fan already gone to the East Sea? How long had it been since he went to the East Sea? When did he return to the North Sea? Why didn't the sects know? Why did Tianfan Laozu sneak into Frost Island so secretly without letting any of the forces in the North Sea know? Looking at the sky full of Mara, could it be that Zhenling had already predicted that Mara would start a war of this scale, and had even predicted that Jade Shura would make a move? Or was this a plot by Zhenling? No matter how many times Laozu's thoughts turned, the current grim situation made it impossible for the sects to care about anything else. At least the appearance of the wind and snow immortals had lifted the morale of the North Sea cultivators, who had been low because of Jade Shura's appearance. Pitter-patter. However, the joy of the appearance of the wind and snow immortals was immediately drowned out by the crowd's fear. At this time, people remembered that the 3 of them were almost equivalent to 2 great Dharma adepts in battle. When the 3 of them fought, unless they were adepts of the same level, even early Dharma adepts could be affected by the aftermath of the battle. An invisible wave rippled out from the center of the 3's battle. Within a radius of a few hundred feet, minor repairs Shura below the core forging stage were all turned back into the source of heaven and earth. The Grand Shura also suffered heavy casualties. Fortunately, these Grand Shura were alert, and most of them stayed away when the 2 sides were fighting. This wave also affected the human adepts on Frost Island. Even with the protection of the island's protective formation, many blood condensation adepts still bled from the mouth and nose of the battle. A Jade Shura's strength was only equivalent to a mid-Dharma adept's, but if the companion spirit treasure of the Jade Shura, which was equivalent to a second disaster spirit treasure, was included, then its strength could be close to that of a great Dharma adept. One only had to look at the vast sea relic and the invincible ancestor Tian Kong who wielded the second calamity spirit treasure, the mountain-splitting axe, to know how powerful a second calamity spirit treasure was in the hands of a mid-Dharma adept. However, there was a difference. The mountain-splitting axe was not Tian Kong Laozu's life treasure, but the companion spirit treasure and companion spirit treasure in the hands of every Shura was something that had accompanied them since they were born. Therefore, the power of the companion spirit treasure in the hands of a Jade Shura was even stronger than that of Tian Kong Laozu, who wielded the mountain-splitting axe. Although the wind and snow immortals' participation in the battle did not change the situation of the battle, it greatly raised the morale of all the sects on Frost Island. Moreover, under the attack of the wind and snow immortals, although the Jade Shura could protect herself, it was extremely difficult for her to gain the upper hand. The battle between Lu Ping and the Ice Shura had reached its climax. The companion spirit treasure that could quickly switch between Ice Sword and Ice Bead was firmly suppressing Lu Ping. If it was not for the incredible defensive power of the fluttering flag above Lu Ping's head after it returned to being a spirit-nurturing spirit treasure, Lu Ping might have been able to escape from the Ice Shura's relentless attacks, even if he was not injured. Although Lu Ping had used the 4 flying swords, Beautiful Autumn Waters and Thin Water Forever to form the Sea of All Rivers sword formation, hoping to completely trap the Shura within the sword formation. However, after the companion spirit treasure returned, the Ice Bead first turned into an ice sword that crashed into the sword formation, and then turned into a giant ice ball. The Ice Shura directly melted into the ice ball, and just like that, it ignored the tens of thousands of sword lights formed by the 4 flying swords and rushed out. After that, Lu Ping was once again at a disadvantage in the battle against the Ice Shura. Fortunately, Lu Ping had a treasure like the water-controlling flag, which allowed Lu Ping to withstand the Ice Shura's pressure. The water-controlling flag was originally a treasure left behind by Jiao Yuqiang, the master craftsman of the Fei Ling sect. After it was completely repaired by Lu Ping, its power had been completely restored. In addition, Lu Ping had condensed 9 Shield of Vigor into 1, and he had recently mastered the great protective power, Water Curtain Heaven Splendor. When the Water Curtain Heaven Splendor was used with the help of the water-controlling flag, Lu Ping finally understood how Jiao Yuqiang was able to withstand the combined attacks of 3 or 4 early Dharma adepts with just a treasure that had just entered the spirit cultivation stage. Lu Ping had used the great protective power of the water-controlling flag to directly block the attack of the companion spirit treasure. Although the shield had been pierced, the ice sword was also at the end of its strength after piercing through the water curtain of the water-controlling flag. Before Lu Ping could use any other methods to block it, the ice Shura had already withdrawn the ice sword. At this time, Lu Ping finally realized that in the sky above Frost Island, there were more than 10 blood Shura participating in the battle against Frost Island. Other than the 4 that Junling was dealing with, the other sects Laozu were also fighting with the blood Shura. However, what shocked Lu Ping was that among these 10 or so fighting groups, the ones fighting were all blood Shura. There was not a single blood demon. However, when Mara was attacking Frost Island, he could clearly sense the presence of the blood demons. In addition, the number of demonic cultivators in Mara's army had obviously decreased. The uneasiness in Lu Ping's heart had already become stronger. Where did these demonic cultivators go, and what were they doing? Naturally, Lu Ping was not the only one who had realized something was wrong. Many of the Dharma adepts fighting in the sky above Frost Island and the cultivators in the protective shield of Frost Island had already realized that something was wrong. However, they were either entangled by the blood Shura or trapped in the protective shield of the island. Even if they were anxious, they could only watch as the hidden demonic cultivators calmly used their own methods. At this time, Tianfan Laozu, who was fighting with the Jade Shura in the sky above Frost Island, suddenly gave a loud warning. He said, "All sects, beware of the demonic cultivator's soul-devouring technique." Tianfan Laozu's sudden warning spread throughout the entire Frost Island. Without any hesitation, Junling immediately ordered the main formation cultivators in their respective Dao soldier formations to take some measures to defend against the attacks of the demonic cultivators. The other sects in the center of Frost Island were a little slower. It was only when the mid-Dharma adepts of their respective sects also noticed that something was amiss and issued a warning that they began to hurriedly put up some defensive measures. However, at this time, the Mara army that was besieging them seemed to have already expected this. They immediately went crazy and began to attack the protective shield of the island. Many of the cultivators from the various sects lost their lives due to the earlier chaos from Mara's wild attacks. At the border between the Linggu sect and the 12 sects, Mara even broke open a gap. Dozens of Mara swarmed out from this gap. If it wasn't for the alertness of the dozen mid and late core forging adepts from the 12 sects and the Linggu sect, who risked their lives to rush out and reseal the gap, and persevered until the protective shield of the island closed the gap again, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Even so, the dozens of Mara that rushed into the protective shield of the island still caused great damage to the cultivators from the various sections. 20 to 30 blood condensation adepts were killed by Mara in the chaos, and a few core forging adepts also fell. Especially the dozen or so mid and late core forging adepts who blocked the gap. They were facing a pincer attack from Mara, and the pressure they had to bear was even heavier. After persevering to restore the protective shield of the island, only 7 or 8 of the 10 or so cultivators survived. However, this was only the beginning of the nightmare. Following a cry of alarm, a mass of dark clouds came from the north of Frost Island, covering the sky and sun, turning the entire sky and earth pitch black. Many cultivators let out cries of alarm. That dark cloud was obviously something that surrounded the body of the demonic cultivators. How many demonic cultivators were hidden within this scene that seemed to cover the sky and sun? At this time, Lu Ping was already retreating in the direction of Junling. Not only him, but the other Junling Dharma form Laozu and the Dharma adepts of the various sects were also retreating in the direction of their respective sections. Lu Ping's divine consciousness had long discovered the situation within the dark clouds. Hundreds of blood fiends suddenly appeared under the leadership of 4 blood fiends. Under the cover of the dark clouds, they formed a strange formation in midair. It seemed to be a huge Dao soldier formation. Chapter 924. Under the leadership of the 4 blood demons, hundreds of demonic cultivators activated the soul-devouring spell in the form of a Tao soldier formation. What kind of scene would this be? Just as the two sides were in a deadlock, the appearance of these hundreds of demonic cultivators could completely break the balance of power between the two sides, tilting the scales of victory completely in Mara's favor. Just as these hundreds of demonic cultivators appeared, the 10 or so Dharma adepts who were fighting in the sky all simultaneously returned to the island's protective formation. This was a moment of life and death. Without the protection of the Dharma adepts, how could the blood condensation and core forging disciples in the sect have the strength to defend against the attacks of the hundreds of demonic cultivators led by the 4 blood demons? Moreover, these Dharma adepts were actually protecting themselves. Under the joint attack of these hundreds of demonic cultivators, if it was just 1 or 2 Dharma adepts, even ordinary Dharma adepts would not be able to block the attack of this soul-devouring spell. These Dharma adepts could only combine the power of each other and their disciples, and rely on the island's protective formation in order to block this killer move of Mara. However, how could the Blood Shura allow these Dharma adepts to have their way? Previously, when the patriarchs of the various sects were entangled with the Blood Shura, other than the mid-Dharma adepts, almost every early Dharma adept was suppressed when facing the Blood Shura. Some did not even have the slightest ability to fight back, and could only rely on the formation to resist the Blood Shura, who had spiritual companion treasures. Now that these Dharma adepts were anxious to return to the formation, the situation suddenly turned around. The Blood Shura were now entangled, not allowing these humans Laozu to return to the island. This, of course, included Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping was already prepared. Just as the demonic cultivators suddenly attacked, Lu Ping immediately turned and ran. The Blood Shura naturally would not let Lu Ping succeed. Moreover, this core forging human miner repairs in front of it had actually been able to attack and defend for so long. This had already made the Blood Shura angry. Just as Lu Ping was about to retreat, the ice sword actually made a circle in midair, actually using this Blood Shura's killer move. Lu Ping continued to move forward for tens of feet, but suddenly realized that the surrounding tens of feet was filled with a chill. This was actually a technique that combines space and natural powers. Although this chill did not form an ice wall or an ice castle, it caused Lu Ping to feel a strange chill penetrate through Lu Ping's skin and into his blood and flesh with every step he took. Moreover, this strange chill seemed to be trying to freeze the space, making it difficult for Lu Ping to move within this range of tens of feet. The Blood Shura's face was ferocious as he attacked Lu Ping from behind. At this time, Lu Ping had already been restrained by his trump card. Although he could not completely freeze Lu Ping, as long as he could cause a little impact on Lu Ping, it would be enough to put Lu Ping to death in a fight between masters. A dense chill rose from the Blood Shura's hand, condensing into a spirit treasure ice pearl again, and then into an ice sword, about to stab Lu Ping in the back. Suddenly, a thunderclap exploded in midair. The Blood Shura shuddered. When he looked up, he saw a drought thunder exploding above his head. A golden light stretched out in midair with many branches, falling directly on the Blood Shura's head. Een Water Divine Thunder. It was a great thunder magic, the Een Water Divine Thunder. The Blood Shura turned pale with fright. He no longer cared about Lu Ping, who could kill him with a single stab. As he turned around and retreated, the chill around him all condensed towards him. Finally, he wrapped the ice ball around his body again before the divine thunder hit him. All demonic Luos, regardless of whether they were demon cultivators or Shura cultivators, regardless of their cultivation base and strength, had an innate fear of thunder spells. Not to mention that the Een Water Divine Thunder was also a very powerful great skill. When it was cast by Lu Ping, with the help of the 7 Treasures Thunder Gourd, the power of the great skill was increased by another 30%. Even Blood Shura had to use all his life-saving skills to defend himself. This was also why the Yuan family of Middle-earth could become the #1 family. Just by relying on the thunder magic that was passed down through their bloodline, the Yuan family was no less useful than the 6 great sects when Mara had wreaked havoc during the Great Calamity. Lu Ping's great thunder magic not only repelled the Blood Shura, but also completely destroyed the divine art that had been blessed by the blood Shura within a radius of dozens of meters. Lu Ping's figure flashed as he turned into an escaping light and landed on Frost Island. He glanced back and saw Blood Azura walking out of the shattered ice ball in a sorry state. Clearly, even if the divine in-water thunder didn't heavily injure him, it still gave him a great fright. Originally, the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash had yet to evolve into a spirit-nurturing artifact. Although the power of the Chaos Purple Thunder divine art it had unleashed was far greater than ordinary great arts, and could almost compete with the great art of moving mountains and filling oceans, it was still beyond its power to unleash a single great art, the in-water divine thunder. However, after Lu Ping had refined the Tribulation Lightning Water and advanced to the peak of the core forging realm, Lu Ping had used the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash to cultivate the water attribute Thunder Magic alone, and had easily mastered the in-water divine thunder great art. Although the in-water divine thunder was not as good as the chaotic thunder light in the Seven-Gem Thunder Calabash, its power was considered to be among the best among the great magic skills. In such a chaotic battlefield, the in-water divine thunder great magic skill could not be more suitable to not reveal the existence of the Seven-Gem Thunder Calabash and still be able to be a trump card to resist Blood Shura. However, it was not possible for Lu Ping to cast other great arts of a single attribute such as the Earth Divine Thunder or the Wood Divine Thunder. Even with the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash, he could not cast great arts of a single attribute. If Lu Ping hadn't refined the Tribulation Lightning Water, he would have had to find another way to practice the water attribute Thunder Magic, and he would have had to pay a huge price. Just as Lu Ping had returned to the island's protective formation, the soul-devouring divine art that had gathered hundreds of demonic cultivators finally erupted. An invisible wave swept towards Frost Island amidst the strange sound. Lu Ping turned pale with fright. At this time, not only Lu Ping, but even the Dharma adepts of other sects, other than the Middle Dharma adepts of Laozu, could not return to the disciples of their sections. Instead, it was people like Tian Shu Laozu who were weak and could only rely on the protective formation to resist the Blood Shura's Dharma power. Because Laozu was close, he was able to turn around and enter the formation. Meanwhile, the two Laozu of Tian Shan and Tian Cheng were even further away from the power of Frost Island than Lu Ping. When the soul-devouring divine art rushed towards him, Lu Ping could only retract his divine consciousness and gather it together to protect himself, hoping that he could withstand the impact of the soul-devouring divine art. At this time, Lu Ping's mind moved, and the small banner rose from the top of Lu Ping's head. Coincidentally, the soul-devouring divine art attacked, and the small banner moved without any wind. In Lu Ping's divine consciousness, the mysterious seal inscriptions on the banner lit up one by one. At the same time, many mysterious seal inscriptions appeared on the blank space of the banner, covering almost half of the banner in an instant. In Lu Ping's divine consciousness, when the soul-devouring divine art rushed in front of Lu Ping, it actually made a strange half-arc, avoiding the impact on Lu Ping, and continued to rush towards the protective formation behind Lu Ping. The divine consciousness that Lu Ping had condensed to resist the soul-devouring divine art was actually useless. However, Lu Ping had no time to be happy. His true essence surged into the small banner from his hand, and he began to refine the new seal inscriptions on the surface of the small banner as he rushed towards the protective formation. Just as he was about to rush into the formation, he heard many Jinling cultivators suddenly exclaim behind Lu Ping. Alarm bells rang in Lu Ping's mind. Blood Azura had actually taken advantage of the soul-devouring divine art of the battle between cultivators and demons just now, and when Lu Ping had completely restrained his divine consciousness, he had actually used an escape technique to catch up with Lu Ping. At this critical moment, Lu Ping only had time to raise the water-controlling flag. The 9 layers of protective aura chi bloomed one by one, interdependent with the water curtain hanging down from the water-controlling flag. At the same time, a huge 9th-grade white jade lotus suddenly appeared under Lu Ping's feet. Whether it was the protective aura chi or the water curtain hanging down from the water-controlling flag, all of them transformed into lotus flowers that bloomed around Lu Ping. Suddenly, there was a rain of ice swords in the sky. No matter which ice sword fell from the sky, Each ice sword could cut down a lotus, and even if it did not cut down the lotus, it could still turn the lotus into an ice sculpture. However, every time a lotus was cut down or turned into an ice sculpture, more lotus flowers would regenerate and continue to block the ice sword. During this moment of stalemate, the ice Shura suddenly appeared a few dozen feet in front of Lu Ping. The ice sword reverted back to a meter-wide ice ball, and the ice Shura flung it fiercely at Lu Ping's protective lotus. The ice ball instantly pierced through Lu Ping's protective lotus. Clang! Lu Ping did not even have time to summon his flying sword. His whole body was smashed away amidst the screams of many Jinling cultivators, and his back slammed into Jinling's island-protecting formation. Under Ice Azura's incredulous gaze, Lu Ping, who was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, slowly climbed up from the formation. The island-protecting formation climbed up along Lu Ping's body and seeped into Lu Ping's entire body. Spiritual Master Xiansen, who was pale from blocking the attack of the demon's soul-devouring divine ability, landed behind Lu Ping. His eyes were filled with anxiety and he asked, "How is it?" The corner of Lu Ping's mouth lifted, revealing an ugly smile, and he said, "Don't worry, martial uncle. If necessary, I can still fight with that beast." At this time, every Dharma Plane cultivator's combat strength was related to the survival of Frost Island. The scene of Lu Ping being smashed away by the Ice Azura was too shocking. Lu Ping had already noticed that not only Spiritual Master Xiansen, but also Tian Shu Laozu and Tian Shui Laozu, who had entered earlier, were also rushing towards him. Spiritual Master Xiansen thought that Lu Ping was trying to be brave, and said, "What is the situation? Now is not the time to be brave. The damage to your physical body is related to the advancement of your cultivation in the future." Seeing that Tian Shu Laozu was approaching, Lu Ping said in a low voice, "Martial uncle, did you forget about the Linglong wine cauldron?" Chapter 925. Although Lu Ping was sent flying by the Blood Shura, he still had the Linglong wine cauldron to protect him. Although the Linglong wine cauldron could not be considered a defensive spiritual treasure, it was still a treasure that had survived the lightning calamity. No matter how weak its defensive capabilities were, it would not be weaker than a top-notch spirit-nurturing treasure. Furthermore, Lu Ping had taken many pills to strengthen his physical body, so his physical strength was already comparable to that of a Dharma adept. Hence, although he was sent flying by the Blood Shura, and although it was shocking, he did not suffer any serious internal injuries. Tian Shu Laozu leaped over to Lu Ping and looked up. "How are your injuries?" Lu Ping smiled. "I'm fine." Tian Shu Laozu nodded and turned to leave. Lu Ping looked at the Jinling disciples around him and asked, "Uncle Master, what's the situation like?" Perfected Xiansen said worriedly, "It's not good." Although our sect had already predicted it, and Uncle Master Tian Shui and Senior Brother Tian Shu had rushed back in time, no one expected that there would be so many demonic cultivators in hiding. Furthermore, they had formed such a Dao soldier formation. This power is really unexpected. More than 100 blood condensation disciples had their divine senses dispersed in an instant. Even 3 core forging disciples had their divine senses disrupted due to carelessness. The rest had even more divine senses and divine senses damaged. Lu Ping was shocked. So many? Isn't it covered by the island's protective formation? If a blood condensation realm disciple lost his divine sense, he would be no different from a zombie. Even a core forging realm disciple would die if his divine sense was disrupted. This was different from perfected Xiansen's battle outside Ying Tian Dojo. Only their divine senses were severely damaged, but they did not lose their foundation. They could still recover with the help of the soul return pill. Taoist Master Xiansen shook his head and sighed. "I'm afraid that many of the highly regarded 4th-generation disciples have been left with internal injuries this time. Their future achievements will be limited. Even those core forging realm disciples with damaged divine senses, although they have enough soul return pills to treat their injuries, I'm afraid that their cultivation time will be extended and their hopes of advancing further will be cut off." As the two of them spoke, they began to gather their disciples. At the same time, they retreated along with the shrinking of the Zhenling sect's island guarding formation so that they could gather the last of their strength to resist Mo Luo's attack. After all, the soul-devouring formation formed by the devil cultivators would not only launch this attack. How are the other sects? Worse. Enlightened Master Xian Sen and Lu Ping retreated as the island's protective array formation shrank. At the same time, they were also blocking the Shura's attacks so that the disciples could carry away the dead or heavily injured disciples. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion in the sky. Lu Ping's expression changed. "Oh no, Uncle Master Tiancheng is injured. Uncle Master, go and help him. Leave this to me." Lu Ping also took out the faded autumn sword and the thin water sword. The 4 flying swords moved in all directions, and dozens of Shuras, including the 3 grand Shuras, were sent flying. The Shura's attacks suddenly stopped. Perfected Xian Sen took the opportunity to leave and brought Tiancheng Laozu, who was also sent flying, back to the protective formation. Tiancheng Laozu's appearance was much worse than Lu Ping's. His energy was dissipating, and Lu Ping's heart sank. A Dharma adept's body and Dharma power were one, and their energy was restrained. If the core space was not broken, there would not be any energy dissipating. However, once a Dharma adept's energy dissipated, even if it was not life-threatening, there would be no hope of improving in the future. From afar, Tiancheng Laozu's laughter could be heard. That guy did not get any benefits either. Although he was not injured, his accompanying spiritual treasure has already been destroyed by the old man. Who knows, he might have to create a new accompanying spiritual treasure. In the distance, Perfected Xian Sen's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. The spirit pills in his hand were poured into Tiancheng Laozu's mouth as if they were free. Another muffled sound could be heard. Tianshan Laozu had finally escaped from the blood Shura. Lu Ping could clearly see that the mountain-driving whip in Laozu's hand was trembling slightly. Fortunately, Tianshan Laozu's expression was calm. It was obvious that even though he was at a disadvantage in that attack, he did not suffer a great loss. Tianshan Laozu's defensive powers were not for nothing. In the sky above Frost Island, only Tianfan Laozu was left fighting with the Jade Shura. However, without Tian Shui and Laozu working together, Tianfan Laozu's ability was not much better than the other mid-Dharma adepts. Although he had the wind snow fans in his hand, it was still only a first disaster spiritual treasure. Under the Jade Shura's relentless attacks, he was slowly losing ground. However, at this moment, Tianfan Laozu could only hold on. If Tianfan Laozu also retreated into the island's protective formation, the destructive power of an unrestrained Jade Shura was not something that Tianfan and Tian Shui Laozu could defend even if they retreated into the protective formation. After all, the protective formation was just an inanimate object. However, Tian Shui Laozu did not dare to leave the protective formation. Tiancheng Laozu was heavily injured, Tian Shu Laozu was not strong enough, and Tianshan Laozu had exhausted too much energy. Lu Ping had just received an attack that had shaken the entire Zhenling. At this moment, Tian Shui Laozu was like Zhenling's stabilizing force. If she left, when the demonic cultivators used their soul-devouring powers for the second time, Zhenling would collapse. Buzz. A formless fluctuation could be felt once again. The hundreds of demonic cultivators relied on the Dao Soldier formation to activate their soul-devouring powers. With a thought, the small banner that Lu Ping had refined appeared in Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping poured his Zhen Yuan into the small banner without any regard for his life. The small banner that was originally the size of a palm immediately expanded to the size of 3 feet. Lu Ping grabbed the small banner in his hand and waved it with all his might. On the surface of the small banner, white clouds appeared. Layers upon layers of clouds appeared. The misty clouds covered a third of the protective formation that Zhenling was in. Following that, the strange fluctuation of the soul-devouring powers arrived one after another. The clouds were suddenly compressed to a fourth of their original size. After that, they slowly returned to their original size. As for the cultivators that were covered by the clouds, most of them were safe and sound. Only the cultivators that were at the edge of the clouds were protected by the soul-devouring powers. Under the protection of the protective formation and their own bodies, only a few of them were injured. However, in the areas where the clouds were not covered by the small banner, Zhenling suffered heavy casualties. 40 to 50 blood condensation realm cultivators had fallen, and 4 core forging realm cultivators had fallen. Coincidentally, these 4 cultivators were the ones whose divine sense had been damaged by the soul-devouring powers. Even so, everyone in Jinling was still cheering. Tian Shui Laozu had long discovered the abnormality. She could no longer be bothered to help Xianqin defend the protective formation. She directly tore through space and appeared beside Lu Ping. The joy in her eyes was so bright that it could even hurt Lu Ping's eyes. Hang the cloud sail? Tian Shui Laozu looked at the small banner in Lu Ping's hand. It had already returned to the size of a palm and was being dyed a bluish-purple color by Lu Ping's Zhenyuan. She asked straightforwardly. After the small banner was attacked by the soul-devouring powers for the second time, the runes on the small banner had already covered more than half of the banner. Lu Ping was currently refining these runes with all his might. After blocking the second attack from the demonic cultivator Dao Soldier, how could Lu Ping be careless with this small banner? This small banner might have already become the key treasure for the cultivators on Frost Island to last until the reinforcements arrived. While Lu Ping was refining it with all his might, he was unwilling to be distracted by speaking. He could only give Tian Shui Laozu an unclear look. Tian Shui Laozu naturally understood that they were in a race against time. She did not disturb Lu Ping from refining the small banner. She took a step back and disappeared. Once again, she returned to the center of the protective formation to help Xianqin repair the protective formation. This time, Jinling's casualties had been reduced by half. The cultivators who were gathered above the spirit mine in the center of Frost Island could naturally see it clearly. Many of the cultivators were quick-witted and had already linked Lu Ping's small banner to the cloud sail. This was especially so for the cultivators of Blue Sea Sect. First, they saw Lu Ping using the thin water-flowing sword to fight against Blood Azura. Now they saw Laozu's cloud sail. All of them looked at Lu Ping like hungry wolves. They wanted to skin him alive. Compared to Jinling, the casualties of the cultivators of the various sects made the Dharma idol Laozu feel sad. After the second attack of the soul-devouring powers, even though the cultivators of the various sects worked together to resist it, this time, not only did hundreds of blood condensation cultivators die, more than 30 core forging cultivators also died. This time, it was really a serious blow. Originally, the combined strength of the various sects far surpassed Jinling. Even if Jinling had Lu Ping's miraculous small banner, the casualties of the various sects were only about the same as Jinling's. However, one should not forget that Jinling's sect's foundation was much deeper than that of the other sections. Over the past 100 years, the number of core forging cultivators in Jinling's sect had more than doubled. Although it was painful to lose 7 or 8 of them at once, even if Taoist Xuanyu was a disciple who was equivalent to a direct disciple, it was not a big deal. However, the various sects were different. For example, Linggu sect, Soaring Feather sect, and Chongming sect. Although they were also considered large sects, the number of core forging stage cultivators in their entire sect was no more than 30 to 50 people. Losing 3 to 5 of them at once was practically equivalent to losing a tenth of their foundation. Even the other sects, such as Hai Yen sect, Shui Yen Pavilion, Xianling sect, and Blue Sea sect, which had much stronger foundations, losing these cultivators was not just painful, it was like carving out their flesh. As they spoke, the great cultivation formation's soul-devouring divine art had already been used for the third time. The 2 great island protection formations on Frost Island had shrunk once again. Jinling's great protection formation had even shrunk to half of its original size. However, facing this attack that was stronger than the last, the various sects Laozu all felt anxious. However, before that strange soul-devouring divine art could descend on Jinling's great protection formation, they saw a 3-meter-long banner slowly rise from the top of Jinling's defensive area. More than half of the banner's surface flowed with mysterious runes and once again transformed into layers of clouds. The misty cloud light actually covered the entire island protection formation after it had shrunk. The various sects cultivators at the center of Frost Island once again suffered heavy casualties. However, this time, Jinling was safe and sound. However, after this small banner was attacked by the Great Cultivation Formation for the third time, the runes that had originally covered more than half of the banner's surface suddenly quickly extended again. The entire banner abruptly lit up. At the same time, a distant bell suddenly rang from the back of the Great Cultivation Formation. Clang. The entire Great Cultivation Formation instantly fell into chaos and collapsed. Chapter 926. After the small banner blocked the third attack of the demonic cultivator's soul-devouring art, the entire banner lit up. The originally 3 meters tall banner stretched again and grew to 30 meters tall. The number of runes on the banner increased once again. The banner that didn't have any runes before was now densely covered in runes. More and more clouds surged out of the banner, and the light emitted by the clouds stretched out once more. It was now able to cover 1/5 of the defense zone that the sects were defending at the center of Frost Island. The area where the sects were immediately stirred. Many cultivators immediately started to swarm towards this small area covered in cloud light. However, right at this moment, an extremely clear bell suddenly sounded from behind the great formation formed by the demonic cultivators. It was the Vast Sea Bell. Not just Lu Ping, after the Battle of the Vast Sea Treasure, many cultivators of the North Sea still remembered the sound of the Vast Sea Bell. That Xiang Lu Laozu had finally come. Xiang Lu Laozu naturally couldn't compare to the Vast Sea Laozu of the past. The Vast Sea Bell wasn't Xiang Lu Laozu's life-bound spirit treasure. In the hands of Xiang Lu Laozu, the Vast Sea Bell was naturally far inferior to the Vast Sea Laozu. However, this Vast Sea Bell was truly lethal to Mara, especially the demonic cultivators. The moment the bell rang, the entire Dao Soldier formation of demonic cultivators immediately fell into chaos. More than 30 demonic cultivators in the last 2 rows of the formation instantly died. Aside from that, several tens of devilish cultivators were also swept away by the chimes of the bell, and they scurried around the formation like flies, creating quite a stir in the entire formation. At the same time, when the Vast Sea Bell rang, the mysterious seal patterns on the small banner in Lu Ping's hand suddenly came alive like fish swimming. The bell seemed to have awakened something. Lu Ping's vital energy easily detected a wave of pure yang energy suddenly overflowing from a mysterious place in the small banner. Lu Ping, who had the Linglong wine cauldron in his hand, was very familiar with this kind of pure yang energy. This was the presence of the artifact spirit of a Thunder Tribulation spirit treasure when it woke up. Was this really a Thunder Tribulation spirit treasure? Lu Ping was shocked and then delighted. At this time, Linglong suddenly stuck her head out of the wine cauldron and said, quickly refine it. Someone must have cast a special seal to prevent its spirituality from dissipating and forced it into a deep sleep. This Vast Sea Bell is the medium to open the seal and awaken its spirituality. You have to refine it while the artifact spirit has just woken up. Otherwise, when its spirituality completely awakens, it won't be easy to subdue a spirit treasure. Lu Ping naturally knew that Linglong was referring to the artifact spirit hidden in the small banner. Naturally, Lu Ping was very happy. Lu Ping knew that the artifact spirit was referring to the spirit hidden in the small banner. By Linglong, Vast Sea Vast Spirit was. The bluish-purple true essence was mixed with traces of flickering lightning. In an instant, it traced the pure yang energy that was dissipating from the small flag. If it was in the past, although Lu Ping was eager to refine the small flag, he would not pour his quintessential essence into the magic treasure like this. This could easily cause damage to the body of the magic treasure. But now that he had confirmed that this small streamer was a spirit treasure, Lu Ping seemed somewhat unscrupulous. Even the violent destructive power of the Thunder Tribulation water in his Zhenyuan was no longer restrained. The material of a spirit treasure was more than enough to withstand Lu Ping's violent Zhenyuan. In an extremely secretive place within the small flag, a golden cloud was changing into various shapes, like a person who was about to wake up rolling on the bed. Faint pure yang energy radiated from the cloud, attracting a rich bluish-purple aura from afar. Lu Ping's quintessential essence followed the flashing pure yang energy in the little flag and charged forward. Finally, he found the golden auspicious cloud and rushed toward it like a flood that broke a dam. On the surface of the small flag, the mysterious runes that originally covered the entire surface of the flag were like tadpoles that had their nest blown up. They wandered around the surface of the flag, gathering and dispersing at times. If a cultivator were to probe the flag with their spiritual sense at this moment, they would immediately be confused by the wandering runes. At this moment, a second bell toll sounded in the distant sea, but this time, the sound came from the rear of the Great Devil Cultivation Formation. This time, the casualties in the Great Devil Cultivation Formation were even more severe. Including the dozens of demonic cultivators that had their black mist dissipated, 70 to 80 demonic cultivators fell from midair. In addition, 20 to 30 demonic cultivators had their black mist dissipated. The entire Great Devil Cultivation Formation fell into chaos again. Although the 4 blood demons tried their best to restrain the sea bell and joined forces to resist the effects of the sea bell, they still couldn't offset the effects of the sea bell's special bell. However, before the sea bell finished ringing, a golden light suddenly cut through the sky and illuminated Xiang Lu Laozu, who was holding a huge bronze bell and was about to flee in a panic. A golden-clothed Shura with a golden face suddenly appeared behind the Great Devil Cultivation Formation. After taking a step forward, a golden light shot out from his hand, but this time it hit the west side, which was hundreds of meters away. A second Jade Shura. There was a second Jade Shura near Frost Island. Xiang Lu Laozu must have arrived near Frost Island a long time ago, but he was blocked by this Jade Shura. Xiang Lu Laozu, who was a lone practitioner, didn't have many tricks up his sleeve other than the sea bell that he had obtained by chance. Fortunately, he was at the mid-Dharma stage. Although he was far from being a match for the Jade Shura, who was at the Dharma stage, the Jade Shura was still wary of the sea bell. The two of them circled around Frost Island like hide and seek. Knowing that Frost Island was in danger, Xiang Lu Laozu took the risk of being killed by the Jade Shura to ring the sea bell. Speaking of which, Elder Xiang Lu was feeling rather helpless. This sea bell was like a hot potato in his hands, but if he wanted to throw it away, he would have to think about the fact that he only had one top-notch spirit-nurturing treasure that had lost all hope of becoming a spirit treasure. Even in a barren land like the North Sea, as a mid-Dharma adept, he was still the poorest of the poorest. No matter what, he could not bear to throw away this spirit treasure that he had already obtained. However, under the heavy pressure of the various sects, Forefather Xiang Lu, a mighty mid-Dharma adept, actually did not dare to show his face in the North Sea cultivation world during this period of time. No matter how he thought about it, he could only risk his life to participate in the Battle of Frost Island. Only then would he be able to make the various sects and forces of the North Sea admit that the vast ocean bell was his. And when the sea bell rang a second time, the mysterious runes on the small flag suddenly began to gather at the top of the flag like ants on a hot pan. Then, they connected with each other, and a big Shang word appeared on the flag. And at this time, in the hidden place of the small flag, the golden clouds had already transformed into a golden-winged prung bird that was about to take flight. But at this time, this prung bird couldn't fly at all, because dozens of flashing blue and purple water ropes had already tightly bound the golden prung bird's wings and feet. Outside Frost Island, Xiang Lu Laozu had dodged the 3 attacks of the metal element Jade Shura. He no longer had the aura of a Dharma adept. He shook the sea bell in his hand, and when the 3rd bell rang, dozens of demonic cultivators died in the demonic cultivation formation. The formation couldn't hold on any longer, and finally collapsed. From afar, Xiang Lu Laozu's roar could be heard. Friends from all sects, I can't hold on any longer. At most, I can lure this Jade Shura away. Take care. Then, Xiang Lu Laozu's figure flashed, and he used his space god art. He immediately retreated a few miles away from Frost Island, and temporarily escaped the Jade Shura's pursuit. This was a last resort. Strictly speaking, it was already very difficult for Xiang Lu Laozu to delay one Jade Shura until now. Otherwise, with 2 Jade Shuras present, the island's protection formation would have collapsed a long time ago. And Xiang Lu Laozu didn't hesitate to expose his whereabouts at the critical moment, and rushed to Frost Island to break the Taoist formation that the demonic cultivators had carefully set up. This was a big favor to the sects of the North Sea and the 12 families. Now that he had retreated, the sects of the North Sea had no reason to criticize him. When the third bell rang, another ball of runes gathered on the flag, and a big cloud word appeared in the center of the flag. Inside the small flag, Lu Ping's blue and purple true energy rope had already tightly bound the golden-winged cloud rock's body. The blue and purple true energy spread along the rope towards the cloud rock's body. Right now, only its head was left. The word Guanyun appeared on the giant banner. Even though there was still a ball of runes left that hadn't formed the third word, none of the cultivators on Frost Island doubted that the third word was the word fan. The blue sea bell, the sea transfer token, and the cloud sail. The last of the 3 Tribulation Thunder Spirit treasures that Blue Sea Laozu had used to shake the North Sea had strangely appeared in the sky above Frost Island. And the owner wasn't the Blue Sea sect, but Zhenling's Lu Xianping. How could it be Zhenling again? How could it be that Lu Xianping again? A ray of light shot out from the island's protective formation at the center of Frost Island. East Pole Laozu grabbed at the floating cloud sail. Right now, Lu Ping was using all his strength to refine the cloud sail. He didn't have the strength to resist East Pole Laozu's snatch. Even if Lu Ping had already refined the cloud sail, he was still far from being a match for a mid-Dharma adept like East Pole Laozu. Snowflakes fell from the sky, sucking towards East Pole Laozu's escaping light from all directions. Bam! Seeing that East Pole Laozu was about to be wrapped up into a ball of snow, East Pole Laozu had no choice but to retract his right hand that was grabbing at the cloud sail. He shook his hand in all directions, causing the ball of snow to explode. East Pole Laozu had no choice but to stop. The exploded snowflakes reformed. Tian Shui Laozu opened her snow fan with a swoosh and appeared in front of East Pole Laozu. She said, "East Pole fellow, now is not the time for internal strife." The two of them retreated the moment they clashed. Then, they stretched out their hands towards the outside of the island's protective formation at the same time. The 2 blood Shura that wanted to take the opportunity to attack the island's protective formation had no choice but to retreat and avoid the 2 Laozu's frontal attacks. Chapter 927. The cloud sail belongs to our sect. The old man must take it back. What a joke! It's true that the cloud sail belongs to Zhenghai Laozu, but if the cloud sail belongs to your Zhenghai sect, why didn't Zhenghai Laozu leave the cloud sail in Zhenghai sect? Tian Shui Laozu's words made East Pole Laozu speechless. Zhenghai Laozu only left the sea transfer token and the thin water flowing sword in Zhenghai sect, but the Zhenghai bell and the cloud sail didn't. This was also the reason why the cultivators of the Zhenghai sect were somewhat indignant. But what really made the Zhenghai sect feel ashamed was the fact that Zhenghai Laozu was actually from the giant whale clan of the demon clan. This secret was originally known only to a few high-level cultivators of the Zhenghai bell. After it was leaked by Demon King Kong Jing, the entire Zhenghai bell was filled with a gloomy atmosphere. At this time, the cultivators of the Zhenghai sect suddenly realized why Zhenghai Laozu rarely returned to the Zhenghai sect after the Zhenghai sect was established, why Zhenghai sect never knew the location of Zhenghai Laozu's cave residence, and why Laozu didn't leave all the treasures in Zhenghai sect, except for the sea transfer token and the thin water flowing sword. The reason was probably that Zhenghai Laozu never had any sense of belonging to the Zhenghai sect, which regarded him as the founder of the sect, Laozu. In any case, the cloud sail and the thin water flowing sword belong to our sect. Our sect must take them back. Tian Shui Laozu glared at him and immediately scolded, "East Pole old fart. Do you want to rob it? Bring it on. If you want to rob the things in my grand disciple's hands, I won't scold you for being shameless. Just step over my dead body." East Pole Laozu opened his mouth and was about to say something, but his eyes were suddenly filled with horror. The cultivators from the various sects behind him let out cries of despair. Tian Shui Laozu retreated to where the island's protective formation disk was. There was an explosion in the sky as Tian Fan Laozu shook off the Jade Azura and staggered towards Frost Island. From afar, where the sea and the sky met, 3 fleeting lights came together. One of the fleeting lights was shining gold. Wasn't it the Jade Shura that had chased after Xiang Lu ancestor earlier? There were 2 other lights on the left and right of the golden one. They were also 2 jade shura. 4 jade shura. How could there be 4 jade shura? Lu Ping's true yuan had dyed the top of the cloud rock's head. Only the 2 golden eyes were still emitting a cold and intelligent light. Although Lu Ping had put all his energy into refining the cloud sail, he could still see the situation around him. Originally, East Pole Laozu's sudden attack had caused Lu Ping to break out in cold sweat. However, the 3 lights that streaked across the sky had caused Lu Ping to turn pale with fright. At this moment, the 4 blood demons seemed to have received some kind of order. They actually abandoned the collapsing devil cultivators and joined hands to attack the spirit stone mine in the center of Frost Island. At the same time, the 4 blood shura that were attacking Jinling abandoned the island's protective formation that Jinling was guarding and turned to attack the spirit stone mine in the center. Mara's army that was attacking Jinling immediately retreated like the tide. They turned and surged towards the center of the spirit stone mine. It was obvious that Mara's army was staking everything on one throw and taking the risk to snatch the spirit stone mine. East Pole Laozu shouted, "Oh no!" He could not be bothered to argue with Tian Shui Laozu anymore. He turned around and fled towards the formation. At the same time, he shouted, "If the formation is broken, Jinling will not be able to get his share of the spirit stone mine." Tian Shui Laozu cursed in a low voice, "What a despicable person!" Although Jinling had almost escaped from the combined defense of the North Seas sects to protect his own medium-sized spirit stone mine, that large-scale spirit stone mine was still one of the foundations of the North Seas cultivation world. In the end, those top-grade spirit stones could only be produced in large quantities in large-scale spirit stone mines. Medium-grade spirit stones could not be produced in large-scale spirit stone mines. With Mara besieging the center of the formation, Jinling could not just stand by and watch. Furthermore, the current Mara looked like a cornered dog that would do something desperate. Otherwise, he would not have exposed himself to Jinling so easily. When the 4 blood devils joined hands to attack the center of the formation, with a thought from Lu Ping, the cloud sail expanded once again. The cloud light directly covered a small portion of the formation, blocking a small portion of the attack from the 4 blood devils. And because Lu Ping had forcefully controlled the cloud sail, the cloud rock's spiritual light suddenly dimmed. Lu Ping took the opportunity to speed up the refinement. The purplish-blue Jin Yuan immediately entered the cloud rock's eyes. Lightning shot out from the cloud rock's eyes. On the surface of the cloud sail, the 3 large characters formed by countless runes suddenly collapsed. The runes reformed on the surface of the sail, forming a golden-winged cloud rock that was about to take flight. The cloud rock seemed to have completely come to life on the surface of the sail. It soared back and forth on the huge sail, and even clear cries came from the sail. However, at this time, the cultivators of the various sects were no longer in the mood to be envious of Jinling's 8th Tribulation Lightning Spirit Treasure. After blocking the combined attack of 20 Blood Mara, the center of the formation was finally broken by the combined attack of 4 Jade Shura. Hundreds of Mara swarmed in and began a fierce melee with the cultivators of the various sects inside the formation. The spirit stone mine of Frost Island was on the verge of destruction. Once these Mara invaded the mine, not only would the mine be quickly destroyed by these Mara, but with the resources of the spirit stone mine, the Mara would be able to quickly grow stronger. It would probably be extremely difficult to take back the mine even with the strength of the entire North Sea. The 2 Laozu, Tian Shui and Tian Fan, joined hands again to fight. They struggled in the air to tangle with 2 Jade Shura, while the middle Dharma stage Laozu, Dongji Laozu, Feng Shidao Laozu, and Hai Hun Laozu worked together to fight against the other 2 Jade Shura. In order to avoid being surrounded by the 20 or so blood demon Luos in the sky, the remaining early Dharma elders had no choice but to rely on the remnants of the formation to continue defending. Jinling's Tian Shu and Tian Shan's 2 Laozu had already made their move again. They entered the center of the formation to help the various sects defend against the other blood Mara's damage to the formation. The heavily injured Tian Cheng Laozu was now at the center of the formation to help Jinling strengthen the defense of the formation's protective shield. This was to prevent a large group of Mara from suddenly coming back to attack Jinling's medium-sized spirit stone mine. The more than 10 top-grade spirit stones around Jinling Xianchen had already been replaced. Some of the more important positions had even been replaced 3 or 4 times. More than 10 top-grade spirit stones had already been used up in this battle, and the number was still increasing. Other than that, the hundreds of slots for the high-grade spirit stones had been used up even more. The reason why Jinling was able to reduce the casualties to this extent this time was partly because of the Laozu, partly because of the cloud sails, and partly because of the unity of the disciples. But most importantly, it had to be said that Jinling Xianchen had been managing the mother-child traction formation. After Lu Ping had completely refined the cloud sails, the golden rock once again shrunk into a small bird the size of a palm. The bird landed on Lu Ping's shoulder and turned its head to peck at the feathers on its body. It then spoke in the human language and said, "Master, you're taking advantage of me when I'm down. If I was still full of spirituality and my strength was not sealed, with your level of cultivation, the golden rock might not have been willing to recognize me as its master." Lu Ping smiled proudly and said, "You can't blame me for this. The situation was dangerous at that time. Only by slowly unsealing and refining myself could I protect my life from the attacks of those demonic cultivators and save my disciples, right?" The golden rock flapped its wings on Lu Ping's shoulder and said, "Just now, it seemed that an old friend of mine had awakened the golden rock from its seal. Do you know where it is now, master?" Lu Ping said, "You mean the vast sea bell? It is now in the hands of a mid-Dharma adept, Xiang Lu Laozu. It came to rescue us just now, but just now, it was chased away by a jade Shura." Lu Ping's mind moved, and the golden rock flapped its wings and flew into the cloud sails. Lu Ping threw the cloud sails up, and a huge sail that was 10 feet tall and 30 feet wide rose up from the formation shield that Jinling was guarding. Jinling Xianchen, who was presiding over the formation, immediately understood. The island's protective formation immediately merged with the cloud sails, and the entire formation was immediately protected by the mother-child traction formation and the cloud sails. The cloud sails, in addition to its extraordinary ability to resist the demonic cultivator's soul-devouring magic, were itself a defensive spirit treasure, and it was a large-scale defensive spirit treasure. After being completely subdued and refined by Lu Ping, it could easily merge with the island's protective formation as one. Lu Ping only relaxed after leaving the cloud sails in the area that Jinling was guarding. He immediately flew out of the formation and attacked a Mara that was attacking the central formation. At this time, although the cloud sails were far away from Lu Ping, the artifact spirit of the cloud sails, the golden rock, had been completely refined by Lu Ping. Right now, even the East Pole Laozu of the Blue Sea sect could not snatch the cloud sails from Lu Ping's hands, so Lu Ping was naturally very relieved. At this moment, Taoist Xiansen had also organized a medium-sized 3 talents 5 elements grand formation, consisting of 32 Jinling sect core forging cultivators. They charged out from the area where Jinling sect was stationed and began harassing Mo Luo's rear, who was besieging the central grand formation, in order to reduce the pressure on the cultivators who were besieged by the central grand formation as much as possible. As for the blood condensation cultivators, there were nearly 1,000 blood condensation disciples that Jinling had sent to Frost Island. After this battle, the number of casualties had already exceeded 500. Jinling Xianchen could not bear to send these disciples to the battlefield no matter what. Moreover, with the current situation, the blood condensation disciples would only be cannon fodder if they went out. More and more Mara rushed into the central formation. The entire central formation was already full of holes. Amidst all kinds of screams and screams, many Mara had even broken through the blockade of the cultivators of the various sects and burrowed into the spirit stone mines. Clang! Seeing that the central formation was about to be completely destroyed, the vast ocean bell rang again outside of Frost Island. Mara's originally frenzied attacks immediately stopped. The cultivators of the various sects took the opportunity to counterattack and continuously drove Mara away. As if he sensed something, Lu Ping raised his head and looked behind him. Joy immediately appeared on his face. At the place where the sky and water met, a dozen or so flying lights were flying towards Frost Island. The two flying lights at the front had already arrived in the sky just a few miles away from Frost Island in a few flashes. Who else could it be other than the two great cultivators, Dao Sheng and Tian Xiang? Chapter 9:28. After Lu Ping exited the Jinling formation, he headed straight for the water Shura whose primordial spiritual treasure had been broken by Tian Cheng Laozu at the cost of being seriously injured. Although this blood Shura's primordial spiritual treasure had been broken by Tian Cheng Laozu and he had lost almost half of his strength, even so, this blood Shura's strength was still at the early Dharma stage. His strength might not be weaker than someone like Tian Shu Laozu. For a blood Shura with such strength, it was easy for Lu Ping to seriously injure it under a sneak attack, but it was extremely difficult to kill it in one blow. If this blood Shura tried his best to escape, Lu Ping would probably have to use all his means. Moreover, there were quite a number of blood Shura madly attacking the central formation. If the surrounding blood Shura rushed over to help, if Lu Ping was too late, he would probably be surrounded by dumplings. At this time, the Dharma Laozu of the various sects in the North Sea had finally come to help. The dozens of flowing lights in the sky were obviously more than 10 Dharma adepts, and the two great adepts, Dao Sheng and Tian Xiang, took the lead and arrived near Frost Island in the blink of an eye. Originally, there was still a thick black mist in the sky that had blotted out the sky from the Great Devil Cultivation Formation, but with the arrival of the two great cultivators, the entire world seemed to have changed, and the mist from before had completely disappeared at some point. After the arrival of the two great adepts, to everyone's surprise, the two Laozu did not immediately make a move to turn the situation around. Instead, they stopped a few miles away from Frost Island and did not move forward. At this time, the situation on Frost Island was already very dangerous. More and more Mara had broken through the blockade of the various sects and entered the Spirit Stone Mine. Fortunately, the various sects' cultivators' attention was focused on the Great Shura, so most of the Shura that broke into the Spirit Stone Mine were minor repairs Shura that were equivalent to the blood condensation stage. There were only a few great Shura that were at the core forging stage. However, these two Laozu were not completely idle. Tian Xiang Laozu saw that the two Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, were struggling to resist the attacks of the two Jade Shura. If it was not for the wind and snow dual fan, they would probably have been defeated long ago. Tian Xiang Laozu casually flicked his finger at the surface of the sea, and a stream of water flowed from the surface of the sea into midair. Then, this stream of water continuously split into hundreds of small tributaries, forming a giant net in midair, and covered one of the Jade Shura that was fighting against the two Laozu, Tian Shui and Tian Fan. At the same time, Dao Sheng Laozu also made a move. Dao Sheng Laozu only lightly pointed his finger, and the Jade Shura that was suppressing Feng Shidao and Hai Hun Laozu suddenly let out a strange cry. Its body moved in a very strange posture, and its shoulder was cut by Dao Sheng Laozu's sword qi. Lu Ping could see it clearly from afar, and he guessed that this was Jinling's main skill, the mystical ape water manipulation art. Lu Ping secretly compared it to his own water manipulation art, and he realized that the two were similar in terms of subtlety. However, Lu Ping's cultivation was too low, and he had only cultivated for a short period of time. His understanding of this kind of god power was far inferior to that of Tian Xiang Laozu, who had cultivated for nearly 1,000 years. Naturally, he could not use the god power of turning water into a net. Tian Xiang Laozu's water net god power was amazing, and it only took a moment for the Jade Shura to be unable to deal with it. Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu, were suddenly under a lot of pressure. However, the Jade Shura's cultivation was still there. Although Tian Xiang Laozu's god power was fierce, it did not trap the Jade Shura for long. Soon, it broke free from the water net. Tian Xiang Laozu and Dao Sheng Laozu, after each of them made a move, hovered in the air above Frost Island, and did not move. In just a moment, the escaping lights that were following Tian Xiang and Dao Sheng Laozu had caught up. In the leading yellow escaping light, Tian Kong Laozu shouted. The mountain-splitting axe in his hand carried an unparalleled power, and it slashed towards the Jade Shura that had just broken free from the water net. At the same time, Tian Feng Laozu swept up a whirlwind and swept past Tian Kong Laozu, heading towards a blood Shura that was fighting with Tian Shu Laozu. Immediately after that, more than 10 Dharma adepts from each sect arrived, and the situation on Huangli Island was suddenly reversed. The Mara clan, which originally had an overwhelming advantage, was now being attacked by the human adepts. If it were not for the large spirit stone mine, the Mara clan would have been defeated long ago. Lu Ping took advantage of this opportunity to suddenly attack the water Shura. 4 flying swords spread out from different directions, intertwining to form a huge sword formation in midair, trapping the unguarded water Shura in the sword formation. Although the blood Shura still had the power of a Dharma adept without its companion spiritual treasure, it was unable to break through the great sword formation that Lu Ping had carefully set up. However, it would be extremely difficult for Lu Ping to use the sword formation to kill it. Lu Ping's mind moved, and the water vapor in the sky condensed. In an instant, the wind and clouds gathered, forming a dark cloud in midair, and flashes of lightning brewed and flashed. Lu Ping made a few hand signs and muttered to himself. Finally, he shouted, "Fall!" Countless bolts of bluish-purple lightning changed shapes in midair, but in the end, they all fell into the sword formation. In the core space, near the 2 most core remarkable power talismans, a remarkable power talisman that flashed with lightning was like a glutton, swallowing the thick Dansha purple gas around it. In the sky above Frost Island's great formation, rays of Kuei water remarkable power continuously struck the sword formation. Only the blood-curdling screams of the blood Shura could be heard. Lu Ping was still unmoved. The inner yuan in his body was being consumed rapidly, supporting the continuous casting of the Kuei water divine thunder. There were also Mara who tried to attack Lu Ping in the surroundings to help the blood Shura that was trapped by Lu Ping's sword formation. However, the Dharma adepts that had reached the Dharma stage had been intentionally blocked by Laozu. The other Grand Shura-level Mara, under the protection of the small black flag above Lu Ping's head, could not even break through Lu Ping's protective light screen. The dark clouds in the sky continuously struck down 18 bolts of Kuei water divine thunder. Finally, the blood Shura in the sword formation was completely exhausted, no longer able to resist the strangulation of Lu Ping's sword formation. In just a moment, a puff of extremely pure water origin spiritual chi exploded from the sword formation, and then quickly dissipated between heaven and earth. At this moment, the world was suddenly filled with an extremely oppressive aura. Even Lu Ping, who had a bloodline that could almost ignore the pressure of a Grand Shura, could feel an extremely strong throbbing. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw the 2 Grand Shura outside Frost Island, who were originally indifferent, looking at something with solemn expressions. Then the entire Frost Island began to shake violently. It wasn't just Frost Island, even the sea around Frost Island began to shake violently. Countless waves surged up and directly smashed down many of the icebergs on the shores of Frost Island. The sounds of ice cliffs collapsing into the sea continuously came from all around Frost Island. Lu Ping seemed to sense something. His eyes flashed with green light as he looked into the distance. He saw many white lines forming where the water and sky met, and then rapidly advancing towards Frost Island. Lu Ping was greatly shocked. He looked around and saw a white line rising from the surface of the sea in every direction. These white lines were connected to each other and formed a giant circle. With Frost Island as the center, the circle was shrinking at an extremely fast rate. This reminded Lu Ping of the Silver Sword Island in the Eastern Sea. The scene of the Kuenfish clan's Grand Shura attacking the island was a close shave. The situation in front of him was obviously much greater than that Kuenfish clan's Grand Shura cultivator back then. As the white lines approached, the huge waves grew taller and taller, even far surpassing the tallest iceberg on Frost Island. As long as the surging waves converged on Frost Island, the entire Frost Island would be completely submerged by the sea. At this moment, Dao Sheng and Tian Xiang, the 2 Grand Shura Laozu, finally moved. One was in the south while the other was in the north. A 3-feet-long cudgel appeared in the hand of the celestial phenomenon patriarch. He threw the cudgel towards the huge waves coming from the north. The huge waves immediately calmed down and fell back down to the surface of the sea in a strange manner. Dao Xing Laozu, on the other hand, went straight towards the huge waves coming from the south. Gusts of wind pressure crushed forward with Dao Xing Laozu as the center. The huge waves that had already piled up to 50 to 60 meters were blown backwards by Dao Xing Laozu's wind pressure. A huge gap also appeared in the south. Even so, the huge waves from the east and west were still pressing towards Frost Island. Although the two Grand Shura cultivators Tianxiang and Dao Xing had neutralized the huge waves from the north and south, the power contained in the huge waves was still so strong that the two Grand Shura cultivators had to suppress it with all their might. However, they had no time to care about the huge waves coming from the east and west. Just as the entire Frost Island was about to be submerged in the giant wave, a low roar suddenly came from the eastern sea region. A giant tail that was dozens of meters long suddenly stretched out from the giant wave. The giant tail abruptly swung and smashed onto the giant wave. Half of the giant wave collapsed in an instant. Then, the giant tail swept horizontally again, and the entire eastern sea region was completely calmed down. At the same time, a primordial giant crocodile appeared in the western sea and suppressed the huge waves coming from the west. Why would the demon race appear here? Moreover, those who could neutralize the huge waves with Tianxiang and Dao Xing must also be two Grand Shura cultivators. Only the primordial giant crocodile clan had two Grand Shura cultivators in the entire North Sea. This was also why the primordial giant crocodile clan had the absolute right to speak among the North Sea demon race. Before Lu Ping could react to the huge change in front of him, he saw the two Laozu cultivators, Tianxiang and Dao Xing, converging towards the center of Frost Island from the north and south, and two burly but fierce-looking elders from the east and west. They're going to, very soon, Lu Ping knew the reason. At this time, in the sky above Frost Island, an ordinary-looking Shura that looked like a human was standing there. Unlike the Jade Shura, whose skin color had changed due to the influence of the origin Qi, this Shura looked no different from an ordinary person except for its eyes. Azura. Above the Jade Shura, the cultivation level was equivalent to that of a Grand Shura. However, because it had a companion spirit treasure that was comparable to a pure Yang spirit treasure, it far surpassed a late Dharma realm Grand Shura. Its strength was even close to that of the pure Yang Laozu's Azura. Chapter 929. No wonder the two great cultivators, Dao Xing and Tianxiang, hadn't acted in time to eliminate Mara after the reinforcements from the North Sea had arrived. There was an Azura spying on them. It seemed that the two Laozu, Dao Xing and Tianxiang, had discovered Mara's weakness. Mara had his own plans. He had originally planned to have two Jade Shuras lead the Mara clan to attack Frost Island, while the Mara would lead the remaining two Jade Shuras and a group of Mara to intercept the cultivators heading north to reinforce Frost Island. The forces gathered by Mara should have been enough to carry out their plan, but two unexpected things happened. One was that Xiang Lu Laozu, who wielded the Bell of the Ocean, acted alone and avoided Mara's interception, appearing near Frost Island. The second was that the North Sea humans and demons, who were originally enemies, had secretly joined forces. Because of Xiang Lu Laozu's appearance and harassment, the sects of the North Sea managed to hold on under the great formation that the demonic cultivators had secretly set up. At the same time, they managed to restrain the existence of a Jade Shura. With the cooperation of the humans and demons, the human cultivators easily broke through the obstruction of Mara's group led by the Azura and arrived at Frost Island Sea in time. At this time, Lu Ping was hiding in a quiet place within Jinling's island's great formation. He didn't join the cultivators of the other sects in chasing after the defeated Mara. Lu Ping held an upper-rank spirit stone in his hand. As he recovered his inner energy, he used his mind to observe the changes in his heart core space. The higher the rank of a Mara, the purer its origin essence was. After a blood Azura died and its corpse returned to its origin, the origin essence it emitted was naturally enough to make Lu Ping drool. Although this origin essence was extremely difficult to collect, Lu Ping had Linglong, a spirit treasure made from Taoist ape's natal spirit treasure, the spirit calming iron. The moment the blood Azura was killed by Lu Ping, she managed to collect a certain amount of origin essence in time. This was also why Lu Ping had chosen to ambush the water Shura. Apart from the fact that its natal spirit treasure was shattered by Tianqing Laozu to avenge Laozu, another important reason was that this blood Azura's origin essence was suitable for Lu Ping to absorb. Although Lu Ping had Linglong to help collect the origin essence, it was extremely difficult to store. If Lu Ping didn't absorb and refine it in time, Linglong wouldn't be able to keep it for too long. Although Lu Ping seemed to be recovering his inner true essence, most of his energy was spent on refining this water attribute origin essence. Inside the core space, every time a wisp of essence escaped from Linglong's wine cauldron, it would immediately be swallowed by the purple mist and then absorbed by the golden core at the center of the core space. To be more precise, it was absorbed by the strange serpent inside the golden core. And every time Lu Ping absorbed a wisp of dispersed essence, he could clearly feel a significant increase in his cultivation base. It could save him at least a month's worth of cultivation. When Lu Ping finished absorbing Linglong's origin essence, Lu Ping felt as if he had been in seclusion for 2 or 3 years. It was still a chaotic battle outside of Frost Island. Although the human race had the absolute advantage right now, the destruction of the Great Formation at the center had caused the human race and Devil Luo to mix together a long time ago. There was me in you and you in me. Even if they wanted to cast large area of effect offensive divine abilities, they were still restricted. They could only fight in close combat. At this time, Lu Ping obviously couldn't cultivate in seclusion for a long time. After he finished refining the origin essence, Lu Ping threw himself into the pursuit of Mara. However, when Lu Ping got up, Linglong's wine cauldron spat out a translucent bead. It was a miniature spirit-gathering bead. Previously, Linglong had said that it could condense a miniature spirit vein from a recently fallen blood Shura. He didn't expect it to actually succeed. However, when Linglong said this, she thought that Lu Ping would only be able to condense a spirit-gathering bead through the wine cauldron after his cultivation reached the Dharma stage. She didn't expect that Lu Ping would be able to fully utilize the power of a spirit treasure and condense a miniature spirit-gathering bead when he was only at the peak of the core forging stage. Dao Sheng, Tian Xiang, the 2 demon race cultivators, and the Azura were long gone from the sky above Frost Island. Only 4 Jade Shuras were still fighting the mid-Dharma adepts of the North Sea sections. The remaining 20 or so Blood Mara had already fled in all directions. The sects of the North Sea seemed to have made up their minds to win this battle. Many Dharma adepts had already begun to work together to hunt down the traces of Mara. At the same time, among the turbulent waves, demon cultivators in human form occasionally rushed out of the sea and joined forces with the human cultivators to kill the defeated Mara. Tiankong Laozu had already given up on the Jade Shura that he was fighting with earlier. Even though he could fight a Jade Shura to a standstill with the mountain-splitting axe, it was almost impossible for him to win. Tiankong Laozu gave up on the Jade Shura and turned to join forces with Tian Fan and Tian Shui to kill the other Jade Shura. Now that the human cultivators had firmly gained the upper hand, the defeat of Mara was already a foregone conclusion. Without Tiankong Laozu's entanglement, the Jade Shura was eager to have a chance to escape. However, in reality, even without Tiankong Laozu's obstruction, there were still cultivators from the other sects who came forward to stop the Jade Shura. This was an extremely rare opportunity to capture all the North Sea Mara in one fell swoop. Naturally, no sect would be willing to play any tricks. Even the demon race cultivators who rushed to help were the same. Right now, the Jade Shura that Tiankong Laozu had abandoned had already been surrounded and killed by the 2 mid-Dharma adepts of the human race and 2 demon race cultivators, Laozu. After Lu Ping flew out of Frost Island, he reached out and waved his hand. The cloud sail that was floating above the area where Jinling was stationed shrank back to the size of a palm and was put into his core space. At this time, the human race cultivators had already joined forces to chase Mara out of Frost Island. Right now, the entire sea outside Frost Island was a battlefield. The human and demon race cultivators were working together to kill the defeated Mara in the sea and in the sky. There was no need for the cloud sail to help Jinling's island protection formation. Lu Ping's divine consciousness swept out, then he turned and headed southeast. The Mara that he met along the way avoided him, and Lu Ping's pair of flying swords did not stay idle either. They followed Lu Ping as he flew, killing everything in his way. By the time Lu Ping stopped, at least 4 or 5 great Shuras of the core forging stage had been killed by him. There were even more Shuras that were undergoing minor repairs. At this time, the 3 Laozu of Tianshan, Tianfeng, and Tianshu were working together to kill a wind Shura in the Dharma stage. Although this Shura had been suppressed by the 3 Laozu, it was impossible to kill it in a short period of time. The wind Shura had a companion spiritual treasure in his hand that seemed to be in between a tangible and intangible state. It swam around his body, causing the 3 Laozu of Tianshan, Tianfeng, and Tianshu to be extremely wary and unable to attack freely. From Lu Ping's point of view, rather than saying that the 3 of them were besieging the blood Shura, it was more accurate to say that the 3 of them were working together to prevent the Shura from escaping. If this continued, the wind Shura would definitely be able to find an opening in their defense and escape. Lu Ping saw that among the 3 Laozu, Laozu of Tianfeng was the most proactive. Looking at the faintly discernible silk-like companion spiritual treasure around the wind Shura, he wondered if Uncle Tianfeng had taken a fancy to this companion spiritual treasure. Lu Ping swung the 5 elements cloud light robe behind him to conceal his figure and fled to the periphery of the 3 Laozu. At this time, the wind Shura swept away the 2 Laozu of Tianfeng and Tianshu. Even though the wind Shura tried its best to dodge, half of its shoulder was still sliced off. The wind Shura, who had been severely injured, saw that there was no hope of escaping. It wrapped the belt of wind around its body and charged towards Tianfeng Laozu. However, the wind Shura only felt a flash of light before its eyes. It looked at the familiar body in front of it with a confused expression. Why did this headless body look so familiar? Chapter 930. Looking at the broken wind belt, Tianfeng Laozu sighed and said, "This is not unexpected. At least these fragments can be used to strengthen my wind wheels. In this way, it will be enough for me to condense the 9th spirit fostering restriction in the future." In previous tribulations of Mara, the number of Shui Mara and above who had died was not small. However, there were very few people who could obtain their accompanying spiritual treasures from Mara. Most of the time when Mara died, their accompanying spiritual treasures would be broken or even self-destructed. If they were lucky, they might leave behind some of the essence of their accompanying spiritual treasures, which were excellent spiritual materials used to improve the quality of magic weapons. Even so, whenever the cultivators of the human clan or the monster clan had the opportunity to kill blood demon Luo, they would expect to be lucky enough to get the companion spiritual treasure in his hand after killing him. Therefore, after the companion spiritual treasure obtained in this way was modified and passed the Thunder Tribulation, it would become a Thunder Tribulation spiritual treasure that could be put into use immediately. This was much faster than constantly upgrading an ordinary magic treasure to a Thunder Tribulation spiritual treasure. Although it was extremely difficult for the modified companion spiritual treasure to pass the Thunder Tribulation, and it was extremely difficult to exert the full power of the spiritual treasure after passing it, this did not prevent the cultivators from looking forward to this method of obtaining spiritual treasures quickly. Tianfeng Laozu teamed up with Tianshan and Tianshu Laozu in order to get the wind belt in the Shui Shura's hand. However, they returned in disappointment. Tianshan Laozu smiled and said, "It's normal that we didn't get the accompanying spiritual treasures. If we did, it would mean that we are very lucky." Tianfeng Laozu's expression changed. He put away the broken pieces of the Shura's wind belt and used the spirit sealing talisman to suppress them in the spirit sealing box. This was to prevent the original wind attribute essence from completely dissipating. He looked at Lu Ping and said, "I originally wanted to borrow this many treasures boy's fate to obtain a companion spiritual treasure, but I didn't expect it to still fail." Back then, Lu Ping had gifted Tianlin Laozu the primordial spiritual treasure he had obtained in the Yingyu swamp. After Tianjiang Laozu had modified it, Tianlin Laozu had helped the primordial spiritual treasure overcome the Thunder Tribulation and become a first tribulation spiritual treasure. This had made many Jinling Laozu envious. Lu Ping naturally knew that Tian Feng Laozu was joking. He smiled and did not reply. Instead, he focused most of his divine sense on the Linglong wine cauldron in his heart core space. "How is it?" asked Lu Ping. He knew that Linglong had completed the cauldron. A miniature spirit-gathering pearl flew out of the cauldron. Linglong's head emerged from the cauldron and said, "The essence dissipated too quickly, so I didn't capture it. Besides, you can't use the wind attribute essence, and the formation of this spirit-gathering pearl is too difficult. Fortunately, you have killed many Mara along the way, and Linglong has absorbed a lot along the way, so this blood Shura has condensed a spirit-gathering pearl." The conversation between the two was through divine sense, so the three Laozu did not know. Although Linglong said that she could condense a miniature spirit-gathering pearl or a miniature spirit vein by absorbing the essence of a fallen blood Shura, that was under ideal circumstances. Usually, when a blood Mara died, Linglong could only gather half of the essence at most, and this was under the condition that Lu Ping was prepared. At this time, Tian Shu Laozu suddenly said, "I have just received news that Hai Han Laozu of the Haiyan sect and 2 early Dharma adepts from the sect have joined forces to kill a blood Shura and obtained a companion spiritual treasure." Tian Feng Laozu cursed and said, "Damn it, they are so lucky." Tian Shan Laozu said, "Even if they obtain a companion spiritual treasure, it is not easy to modify it and help it pass the Thunder Trial. As far as I know, the Haiyan sect does not have a master crafting weapon. Moreover, not everyone in the North Sea is willing to risk their own Thunder Trial to help a spiritual treasure pass the Thunder Trial." Tian Shu Laozu nodded and said, "Exactly. But what should we do next? Should we continue to join forces to kill the blood Shura?" Tian Shan Laozu shook his head and said, "By now, the blood Mara who can escape has long escaped. Those who have not escaped are already in a desperate situation. They do not need our help, lest the adepts from other sects misunderstand our motives." Seeing that everyone nodded in agreement, Tian Shan Laozu continued to instruct, "The most important thing now is to command the disciples to destroy the ordinary blood Mara army that has lost the guidance of the blood Mara. At the same time, protect the disciples. Senior brother Tian Shu, you also need to command the disciples to destroy the Mara who have infiltrated the large spirit stone mine in the center. Although most of these Mara are underground minor repairs Azuras, there are very few great Azuras at the core forging stage. They can be given to the disciples as a training mission, but I still need you to be there to protect the disciples and prevent the other sects from taking advantage of the mine." Tian Shu Laozu nodded and said, "That's right." After Tian Shan Laozu finished instructing, Lu Ping was about to leave when he heard Tian Shan Laozu say, "Don't go. The battle has just ended. This time, our sect has suffered heavy casualties, especially your senior uncle Tian Cheng. His injuries are even more serious. You are the only alchemist grandmaster on Frost Island now, so it is time for you to leave." Lu Ping wasn't in the mood to stay on Frost Island at all, but Tian Shan Laozu's reason couldn't be refuted by Lu Ping. He could only say, "This disciple has already checked on senior uncle Tian Cheng's injuries. Let's wait for senior grandmaster Fornax to arrive first. As for the injuries of the other disciples, I believe that the disciples of the pill pavilion will arrive soon. This time, we have prepared enough healing pills, we just need to use the right medicine." Tian Shan Laozu didn't hear Lu Ping's intention to evade. He thought that Lu Ping wanted to escape because of Tian Cheng Laozu's injuries, so he said, "I also know that junior brother Tian Cheng's damaged origin is extremely difficult to recover. However, there is a grandmaster on Frost Island who is healing the disciples. This will be a great help in calming the hearts of the disciples." Lu Ping had no choice but to say, "I won't hide it from you, senior uncle. On my way here, I discovered an extremely important clue. Right now, I really don't have the mood to stay on Frost Island. I have to go investigate. Please allow me to report to you when the time comes." Before Tian Shan Laozu could ask more, Lu Ping had already disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Tian Shan Laozu sighed helplessly and turned to return to Frost Island. It wasn't that Lu Ping didn't want to invite Tian Shan Laozu along, but if the place Lu Ping was going to was really dangerous, Not only would Tian Shan Laozu not be able to help, he might even be a burden to him. Of course, if it was Tian Fan, Tian Kong, or other mid-Dharma Laozu, it would be a different story. However, right now, they were besieging the Jade Shura and were at a critical moment, so they naturally didn't have the time to care about other things. Moreover, Lu Ping himself wanted to get the benefits first, so he didn't want to bring others to share his own benefits. Just as Lu Ping left Frost Island and headed southeast, the spirit of the Golden House, Ruyu, suddenly communicated with Lu Ping through telepathy. She said, "Master, it's in this direction." Ruyu can already sense that the treasured ship has sunk in the deep sea a few hundred miles away. Lu Ping was overjoyed and said, "Really?" Ruyu hesitated for a moment and said, "It is indeed in the direction of the treasured ship." However, Ruyu can only sense the approximate location of the treasured ship. "I don't know its exact location." Lu Ping didn't mind. However, at this time, Lu Ping saw the three Laozu of Sky Mountain, Tian Feng, and Tian Shu besieging the Blood Azura. He had no choice but to go and lend a hand. After Lu Ping bid farewell to Laozu of Sky Mountain, he flew southeast until he was 300 miles away. At this time, Lu Ping had no choice but to cover his body with the Cloud Light 5 Elements raiment. Along the way, Lu Ping discovered that a portion of the Azuras who were fleeing in all directions from Frost Island had started to gather in the direction Lu Ping was going. At the beginning, Lu Ping was still on a whim. He used his dual flying swords to kill the Azuras he encountered. However, as Lu Ping went further and further, the number of Azuras he encountered became more and more frequent. Their cultivations also grew higher and higher. In the end, they simply gathered into a torrent, flying in the sky or swimming in the water. Lu Ping knew that something was wrong. However, Ruyu's perception of the treasured ship was in the direction of the defeated Azuras. At this time, Lu Ping didn't dare to show himself and kill the Azuras. He simply concealed his tracks and began to follow this group of Azuras towards the southeast. When this group of Mara was 500 miles away, the group had already gathered nearly 700 to 800. Among them, there were dozens of big Mara who were in the core forging realm. Lu Ping hid himself even more. At this time, this group of Mara collectively sank towards the bottom of the sea. Lu Ping's heart moved. He silently escaped into the sea and continued to follow this group of Mara towards the southeast. This group of Mara continued to flee towards the southeast for 200 to 300 miles. During this time, they also sank deeper and deeper into the sea. According to Lu Ping's estimation, they were at least 3,000 to 4,000 meters below the surface of the sea. However, according to Ruyu's perception, Lu Ping actually knew the direction that Fei Ling Sek's treasured ship was heading towards. Now, he was still heading in the same direction as this group of Mara. At this time, it would be unreasonable for Lu Ping to not suspect that this group of Mara had the same destination as him. Lu Ping's consciousness sank into the House of Gold and asked, "Ruyu, I remember that you once said that there was a large spirit vein in the treasured ship?" Ruyu thought for a moment and said, "That's right. However, because I was taken away from the House of Gold and the treasured ship sank, that large spirit vein had already been selected at the bottom of the sea if it hadn't dissipated yet. That's why it was preserved." As soon as Ruyu's voice fell, she heard a clamor from the group of Mara ahead. They faintly revealed a hint of joy. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw a huge trench at the bottom of the sea in front of him. This group of Mara directly sank into the trench and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The bottom of the sea was already 4,000 to 5,000 meters deep. However, after Lu Ping used the three Pure One's true pupils, the situation at the bottom of the sea was still very clear. Lu Ping stood at the edge of the trench and looked down. A huge ship covered with seaweed mud was lying quietly at the bottom of the sea. The group of several hundred Mara were diving towards the ship. From afar, it looked like a group of ants crawling towards a huge tree. Chapter 931. The treasure ship was a common tool used to communicate between the overseas training world and the central training world. At the same time, it was also a necessary way to pass through the stormy ocean that separated the two realms. At the same time, it was also the only way to set up a long-distance teleporter. For the overseas large sects to be recognized by the entire training world, other than having at least 2 Dharma adepts and at least 10 third-generation Dharma adepts, the most important thing was for the sect to have the ability to communicate between the 2 realms. Only then would it be possible to be recognized by the central training world and even the entire training world. All these requirements would be focused on one thing, and that was the treasure ship. And the treasure ship was not only a reflection of the heritage of a sect, but more importantly, it was a symbol of the status of a large sect. According to what Lu Ping knew, a treasure ship had to be at least 140 feet long and 400 feet wide. These were just minor details. The key was that the shell of the treasure ship had to be at least an upper-grade ritual weapon made from top-grade spiritual materials. The use of the keel of the treasure ship had to be at least at the level of a magic weapon, or even higher. In addition, the other important parts of the treasure ship needed to be above the level of a top-grade ritual weapon. The upper-grade ritual weapon used on the shell was the most inferior part of the treasure ship. There was a space in the key parts of the treasure ship. Some rich sects might directly embed a treasure grotto heaven in it. If they could not, a space grotto heaven at the level of a ritual weapon could be supported. However, compared to a treasure grotto heaven, there was naturally a big difference. The treasure ship of the failing sect obviously did not embed a treasure grotto heaven in it. This was not to say that the failing sect did not have the ability to create a treasure grotto heaven, but the requirements to embed a treasure grotto heaven on the treasure ship were far greater than the requirements to embed a treasure grotto heaven at the level of a ritual weapon. And in this grotto heaven, the most important thing was to be able to accumulate a large spirit vein to create a false earth vein. When the treasure ship traveled in the sea, when it resisted the wind and waves, and when it passed through the dangerous environment of the stormy ocean, it needed a large spirit vein as a source of power. In addition, there were 3 other important factors. The first was to have a Dharma adept. This was a prerequisite for the treasure ship to be able to pass through the stormy ocean. It was also the key factor for a treasure ship to be used as a deterrent. It was also the reason why a large sect needed at least 2 Dharma adepts. At the very least, one of them could stay in the sect and the other could guard the treasure ship. The second was a master of arrays. From the outside to the inside, there were countless runes engraved on the treasure ship. The entire treasure ship could be said to be an independent space of arrays. This was an important way to defend against enemies, and also an important indicator of the quality of the treasure ship. One of the most important reasons why the outer shell of the treasure ship had to be assembled with high-grade spirit materials was to be able to withstand the huge force generated by the activation and operation of the entire treasure ship formation. Secondly, it was to resist all kinds of dangers that might be encountered during the voyage. The third was the artifact spirit of the entire treasure ship. With the existence of an artifact spirit, cultivators could save a lot of true essence when driving the treasure ship on the sea. It could also adjust the resources of the spirit veins in time, and it could also help the array formation master coordinate the activation of the treasure ship's array formation. The third was the spirit of the treasure ship. With the existence of a spirit, it could save the cultivator a lot of Zhenyuan when driving the treasure ship on the sea. It could also adjust the resources of the spirit vein in time, and it could also help the master of arrays coordinate the activation and operation of the array of the treasure ship. The outer shell of the treasured ship was covered with mud from the seabed. Even though the majority of the outer shell had reached the level of a high-grade magic tool, and many parts had even reached the level of a top-grade magic tool, it could be seen that many places had already been severely corroded. Most of the runic patterns carved on the outer shell had already become blurred. The shell of the treasure ship was covered with mud from the bottom of the sea. Although most of the shell had reached the level of a top-grade instrument, and some of them had even reached the level of a top-grade instrument, many parts of the shell had already been severely corroded. Most of the array inscriptions on the shell had become blurred. The treasure ship was tilted to the right and leaned against the bottom of the cliff. On land, the divine sense of a cultivator who had just advanced to the core forging stage could cover a radius of 100 feet. On the other hand, the divine sense of an early Dharma adept could cover a radius of 10 miles. An ordinary adept who had just reached the blood condensation stage could probably use his divine sense to cover a radius of 100 feet on land. An adept who had just entered the core forging stage could use his divine sense to cover a radius of 100 feet. An early Dharma adept could use his divine sense to cover a radius of 10 miles. Lu Ping's divine sense was far more powerful than others and was comparable to a mid-Dharma adept. Although Mara was soul-devouring, magic treasures usually condensed 4 treasure barriers and reached the level of psychic magic treasures would only give birth to a weak spirituality. Similarly, it would also attract Mara's attention. And ordinary magic treasures were usually called spirit-breeding magic treasures. Their spirituality was not obvious at all, so they wouldn't attract Mara's attention. Therefore, the shell, keel, and most of the cabins of the treasure ship were preserved to the greatest extent. Lu Ping checked the remaining cabins while sinking his divine thoughts into the golden house to ask Ruyu, "Do you know who injured this treasure ship when it sank?" Ruyu shook her head and said, "I can't remember. But it seems that the formation plate of the treasure ship had a problem first, which greatly reduced the power of the formation outside the treasure ship. Then the left side of the treasure ship was pierced, and the golden house was broken. The person who sneaked up on me seemed to be targeting me, but Zhongjuan Laozu appeared in time and saved me. However, when I was taken away by Zhongjuan Laozu, the treasure ship didn't seem to sink completely." "Oh," Lu Ping said, "this is too much of a coincidence. Obviously, Fei Ling sent out a mole, and they cooperated with each other to sink the treasure ship." Ruyu nodded and said, "It should be so. After Zhongjuan Laozu brought us back to Fei Ling's sect, he handed it over to Zhongshuan Laozu and Jiao Yuqiang to repair it. But not long after, Jiao Yuqiang laid down a big formation in the Spirit Stone Mine and secretly placed me there. It has been 4,000 years since then. If Master didn't appear in time, I'm afraid that Ruyu's spirituality would have been exhausted and disappeared." These days, Ruyu had recovered more than half of her memories. Although she had forgotten a lot of her previous memories due to the erosion of her spirituality, she had also recovered a little. She also remembered a little about the situation when the treasure ship sank, but there were still many key points that she couldn't remember. Even if Ruyu completely recovered her memory of 4,000 years ago, she probably couldn't know the cause and effect of the destruction of Fei Ling's sect with her identity as a spirit. But at least she could provide a lot of information for Lu Ping. At this time, when Lu Ping was about to come out of a cabin, Ruyu suddenly transmitted her voice to him. "Master, Ruyu seems to remember that there used to be a secret room here. It seems that Mara hasn't found it yet. Master, open it and see if you can find anything." Lu Ping was delighted and immediately asked, "I'm afraid there is more than one secret room in this treasure ship, right?" Ruyu nodded and said, "That's right. It's just that most of the secret rooms are assembled from the components of extremely good quality psychic treasures and above." Just now, Ruyu saw quite a few of them, but those secret rooms had already been completely destroyed by Mara. This secret room, however, is made from the components of ordinary magic treasures. Perhaps it's because of this that it didn't attract Mara's attention. However, it's precisely because the quality of this secret room isn't good that even if there are some things inside, they won't be very good. Lu Ping naturally had already thought of this. His divine sense penetrated the direction that Ruyu pointed, but the surface of the cabin suddenly flashed with a layer of faint brilliance, and Lu Ping's divine sense was bounced off. Lu Ping was surprised and said, "The treasure ship's array is actually still working." Ruyu was obviously also surprised and said, "Maybe it's because of the spirit vein." When the treasure ship sank that day, although the array was destroyed, most of the array on the treasure ship was still operating. Although Zhongjuan Laozu abandoned the ship, he obviously wanted to salvage the treasure ship in the future and use it again, so he didn't completely shut down the array. It's because the array can protect the hull of the ship from being eroded by the seawater to the greatest extent. Lu Ping thought of the array runes on the shell of the treasure ship that were blurred but could still be seen. Presumably, it was because of this that the treasure ship could still maintain a complete outline at the bottom of the sea for 4,000 years. Although the array on the body of the cabin was still working, due to the relocation of the spirit vein, the protection was obviously extremely limited. Lu Ping pressed his palm up, and the surface of his palm flashed with a golden brilliance. The body of the cabin that his palm pressed quickly began to dissolve, and slowly, a cabin with a radius of 5 feet was revealed. After 400 years, this cabin still hadn't been invaded by the seawater. When Lu Ping broke this cabin, he had already arranged a layer of waterproof restriction on the outside, so he walked inside. A corpse was lying in the cabin, and the corpse had long decomposed, leaving only a skeleton and tattered clothes. There was a necklace hanging below the neck of the skeleton, and Lu Ping naturally saw that it was a storage magic tool, so he reached out and pulled it off. Lu Ping looked around the cabin, but unfortunately, he didn't find anything. There were only the marks of the bombardment left on the cabin wall. It was obvious that this person was trapped inside after the treasure ship activated the array. After the treasure ship sank, but because of the existence of the spirit vein and Zhongjuan Laozu didn't close the array, this cultivator still couldn't escape from the secret room. In the end, he was forcibly suffocated in the secret room. As for how the cultivator managed to enter the secret chamber, Lu Ping didn't know. However, he could tell that the cultivator's cultivation base wasn't high when he was alive, at least not in the Avatar realm. Otherwise, even if he couldn't break through the secret chamber's wall, he could still cause a huge commotion and attract the attention of the Fei Ling sect cultivators who were retreating. Lu Ping roughly walked around the treasure ship, and after he didn't find anything, he returned to the broken cabin wall, and then he followed the hole to the other side of the ship. Only then did he find that the blow that broke the treasure ship not only broke the port side, but also the starboard side. It was precisely because the starboard side was also broken that after the treasure ship sank to the bottom of the sea, the spirit vein was reintroduced into the spirit vein through the hole on the starboard side. At this time, the hole on the starboard side, which was also the source of the spirit vein, had a huge hole dug by Mara. Chapter 932. There was a layer of prohibition placed at the entrance of the cave, isolating it from the seawater. Lu Ping snuck into the cave and found that this layer of prohibition was only a very simple application of the essence of the source. However, the person who had set it up was extremely powerful, which was why it could withstand the pressure of such deep seawater. In Lu Ping's opinion, the person who had set up this layer of prohibition was at least at the Dharma stage, Mara. It was not difficult for Lu Ping to remove this layer of prohibition, but once he touched it, he was afraid that it would immediately alert the hundreds of Mara who had escaped into the cave earlier. After thinking for a while, Lu Ping flicked his hands continuously, and the 12 gentian pearls were flicked one by Lu Ping in all directions of the cave entrance. After that, Lu Ping still felt uneasy, so he placed 4 flying swords around the 12 gentian pearls. Only then did he make a spell with both hands. Just as he was about to hit the layer of prohibition, Lu Ping suddenly pulled back his hands again. He slapped his head, shook a large silver seal from his waist, and threw it above the cave entrance on the port side. Lu Ping thought for a moment, and after making sure that he had set up everything carefully, he stomped his feet and summoned the rank 9 white jade lotus. As the white jade lotus emitted a hazy white brilliance, lines of formation runes flashed on the petals, and then the surface of the 12 gentian pearls shone with a 5-colored brilliance. Lu Ping raised his hands, and the brilliance on the surface of the gentian pearls immediately converged, and together with the white jade lotus, they were hidden in the surrounding seawater. Only then did Lu Ping make a seal with both hands, and fiercely pushed at the prohibition of the cave entrance. Together with the prohibition of the cave entrance, the surrounding seabed suddenly shook, and the prohibition was immediately broken. The turbulent seawater poured into the cave entrance, and countless screams of fear came from the depths of the cave. Lu Ping was still silently guarding the cave entrance. After seeing that the cave entrance was filled with seawater, he shook the cloud light 5 elements garment that had turned into a cloak behind him, and his entire person suddenly disappeared in the seawater. The water was surging, and more than a dozen Mara rushed out of the cave under the leadership of 2 great Azuras. However, looking at the quiet seabed around them, these Azuras seemed a little suspicious. Under the command of the 2 great Azuras, they began to split up and investigate the surrounding cabins. As soon as the 3 minor repairs Azuras on the left walked to the side of a cabin of the treasure ship, they felt that there was something wrong with the surrounding water. Before the three Asuras discovered any clues, their entire bodies began to explode in the seawater. 3 spiritual auras of different attributes spread in the seawater, and the bodies of the 3 minor repairs Asuras melted in the seawater with the dissipation of the spiritual aura. The movement here soon attracted the attention of more than a dozen Asuras. Although the 3 minor repairs Asuras died silently, Mara was extremely sensitive to spiritual aura fluctuations. When Asuras died, they would often return to rich spiritual aura of heaven and earth, and it was extremely easy for other Asuras to know. However, before these Asuras could gather and investigate the place where the 3 minor repairs Asuras had died, these scattered Asuras exploded in different places. The spiritual aura fluctuations caused by the deaths of the minor repairs Asuras came from all directions. The 2 great Asuras finally sensed that something was wrong. They turned around and were about to return to the cave entrance, but they suddenly realized that the seawater around them was surging. Water currents from different directions entangled the 2 great Asuras from all directions. No matter how hard they struggled, they could not break free. At this moment, the 2 great Asuras finally realized that something was wrong. Shrill roars came from their mouths, and they spread into the cave entrance. They seemed to be warning the other Asuras in the cave, and they seemed to be asking for help. The roars of the great Asuras stopped abruptly, and the surrounding seawater immediately returned to calmness. The bodies of the 2 great Asuras had completely disappeared, leaving only rich spiritual aura in the seawater spreading in all directions. The complete death of the pair of Asuras finally alarmed the hundreds of great minor repairs Asuras hiding in the cave again. The seawater at the cave entrance fluctuated again, and the fluctuations of the seawater were getting stronger and stronger. Obviously, the number of Asuras that appeared this time was definitely not as simple as a dozen. The surrounding seawater was still calm, as if there was not the slightest clue at all, indicating that Lu Ping had already set up an inescapable net here. More than 20 minor repairs Asuras rushed out of the cave entrance and rushed in all directions. Immediately afterward, more than 30 minor repairs Asuras surrounded by 7 or 8 great Asuras rushed out of the cave. This was not the end. After the 7 or 8 great Asuras commanded their minor repairs Asuras to occupy their respective positions, another team of minor repairs Asuras and minor repairs Asuras rushed out of the cave one after another. There were about 100 of them in total. The seawater in the cave entrance was still surging. Obviously, there were more Mara following behind. Judging from the aura emitted from inside, there were probably several great Mara whose cultivation had reached the core forging stage. The strange calmness of the cave entrance and the appearance of a large number of Mara seemed to make many Mara feel that the murderer did not dare to provoke them at this time. They must have gone far away, so they inevitably lowered their vigilance. However, right at this moment, 12 beams of dazzling 5-colored light suddenly shone in the ice-cold seawater. Right when the over 100 Maras were at a loss of what to do, a huge refining phantom suddenly bloomed in the seawater above the cave. Streams of mysterious runes faintly connected with the 12 pearls that were emitting 5-colored light in the surroundings. A Mara whose cultivation had reached the late core forging stage roared loudly, as if to remind the surrounding Mara to be vigilant. The surrounding Mara did indeed move, but then more and more Mara let out panicked roars. When the nearly 200 Mara moved in the seawater, they suddenly found that the seawater around them had become abnormally viscous. Not only did it consume a lot of strength to move, but it also became increasingly slow. In the seawater above, there was a white jade lotus that emitted a misty white light after it bloomed. It seemed to be constantly swaying along with the turbulence of the seawater. The mysterious runes that formed this illusory image seemed to be a lotus, and also seemed to be a picture. At this moment, the 12 beads emitting 5-colored rays of light in the surroundings moved. With the refining phantom reflected in the seawater as the center, the 12 beads fiercely shot out in all directions, drawing a 5-colored halo in the seawater. Almost every time a halo passed by, the bodies of several Mara would be pierced by the beads, and they would completely turn into streams of rich spirit chi in the seawater. It was unknown when, but in the middle of the huge white jade lotus phantom above the seawater, a huge wine cup appeared in the lotus. After the Mara was pierced by the gentian beads, its body had turned into streams of spirit chi and unknowingly gathered in the wine cauldron above the seawater. In the seawater, the screams of nearly 200 Mara when they died not only did not scare the large group of Mara that was rushing out of the cave, but it also made them rush out of the cave even faster. Nearly 200 Asuras were instantly annihilated by the gentian formation set up by Lu Ping, and under Lu Ping's deliberate control, none of those great Asuras at the core forging stage could survive. The 40 to 50 Mara that were lucky enough to survive had not yet escaped the shroud of the huge white jade lotus above their heads, but they suddenly noticed a cold undercurrent surging in the seawater around them. Before these Mara could react, the 4 flying swords had already divided into hundreds of sword chis, completely sealing the space around the gentian formation. In an instant, the dozens of small Mara that were lucky enough to escape were all turned into broken limbs. In the blink of an eye, only over 100 small Mara died so easily under the gentian formation and sword formation that Lu Ping had carefully set up. Not only did Lu Ping not expect this, even Imo Luo, who was in a hurry to rush out of the cave, didn't expect this either. Otherwise, they wouldn't have rushed out of the cave so easily. Instead, they would have waited for Lu Ping to find them while they had the geographical advantage. Over 100 Mara rushed out of the cave under the leadership of a dozen great Mara at the core forging stage. However, what appeared in front of them were dense spiritual chi of various attributes in the seawater and the remains of over 100 Mara that had not had time to melt. At the instant the 100 or so Mara charged out of the cave, they felt as if they had jumped into a pot of thick soup, and it was difficult for them to even take a single step forward. Some of them turned around and wanted to escape back into the cave, but it was already too late. The gentian formation was launched again, and the sword formation set up by the 4 spirit cultivation flying swords surrounded and killed the fish that escaped the net. In a moment, these great Asuras were all beheaded, and the remaining few small Mara were just some shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Lu Ping just shook a few hand signs, and with a flash of blue light in the seawater, their chests all collapsed, and they could not be more dead. The death of nearly 400 Mara accounted for half of the strength of the previous defeated Mara, and there were no more Mara in the cave. Lu Ping appeared from the seawater, and his divine will stretched out to explore the cave. Suddenly he felt several strange divine wills surrounding Lu Ping's divine will. Lu Ping laughed coldly in his heart. He knew that this was the Mara in the cave. After discovering that the cave entrance had been sealed by their incomparable strength, the few core forging demonic cultivators had turned their attention to the confrontation of their divine wills. However, they did not know that Lu Ping's own divine will was already at the level of a mid-Dharma adept. Now that he had the cloud sail to protect him, he did not care about the soul-devouring magic that these core forging demonic cultivators had used. Lu Ping's figure turned into water, and the 4 flying swords and the gentian formation were all wrapped up by Lu Ping in the water, and he went deeper into the cave. Behind Lu Ping, a huge black shadow quickly descended from the top of the cave. There was a muffled sound, and the huge mountain collapsed, completely pressing down on the cave entrance. At the same time, it completely blocked off the escape route of the Mara in the cave. Chapter 933. Lu Ping blocked the exit of the cave with landslide. He had just walked a few feet inside when he noticed that there was a slight fluctuation in the water beside his ear. 2 great Shuras, whose cultivation was equivalent to the late core forging stage, had already attacked Lu Ping from both sides. However, although the 2 water Shuras' escape technique was wonderful, Lu Ping's cultivation was stronger. Before the 2 Shuras could reach him, they found that the seawater in front of them had become in a state of spurting outward. This huge force even made the 2 Shuras unable to move a step forward with their water escape technique. The 2 Shuras immediately realized that something was wrong, but before they could retreat, 2 flying swords had already rushed out of the rapidly spurting water and stabbed at the 2 Shuras. After all, the 2 Shuras' cultivation was still there. They used their companion magic weapons to block the Autumn Beauty sword. Originally, they wanted to take advantage of the blocking force to retreat, but unexpectedly, the water that was originally spurting outward had already divided into several thin streams, like ropes, binding the two Shura's limbs. The two great Asuras turned pale with fright. But then, their bound limbs suddenly turned into water, and Lu Ping's water manipulation technique lost its target. He was greatly surprised. It was not that Lu Ping had never encountered this kind of magic power. Even when he usually used the water escape technique, he often turned into water. However, with his current strength, there were few Shuras of the same level who could use the water transformation technique to escape from his water manipulation technique. However, these two Shuras managed to do so. However, through the exchange just now, Lu Ping could clearly feel that although the two Shura's cultivation was equivalent to the late core forging stage, their strength might not be outstanding. Although Lu Ping was surprised, he naturally did not intend to let these two Shuras go. Two thunderbolts were shot out from Lu Ping's fingertips, and suddenly the two Shura's skin was torn and their flesh was torn, and they screamed miserably. The magical power of Yin Water Thunder that Lu Ping practiced was a magic that even Blood Shura was afraid of. It was naturally not a problem to use it against these two great Shuras. Lu Ping took the opportunity to use the twin flying swords to decapitate the two Shuras, and then with a wave of his hands, Linglong's wine cauldron appeared in the cave and swallowed the two water Shura's bodies that had not yet melted. Lu Ping stretched out his hand to cut open a space crack, and released Samling, Dagui, and Lu Qiner from the Golden House. Although this cave had been opened up by Mara, it was actually not very large. Just now, Lu Ping's divine telekinesis had almost explored all the passages in the cave, and he did not find the presence of the blood Mara that Lu Ping was afraid of. There were 300 to 500 Shuras gathered in the cave, but at this time, they were hiding in the maze like stray dogs. Just now, Lu Ping's divine telekinesis had frightened this group of Mara, and the invasion of Lu Ping's divine telekinesis had caused a few great devil cultivators to use their soul-devouring magic, but they could not hurt Lu Ping at all. Instead, they were seriously injured by Lu Ping's divine telekinesis. This made Mara, who was hiding in the cave, feel despair. Since he had already found out the strength of these Mara, Lu Ping was naturally not interested in finding them one by one and killing them. Therefore, he called out Samling and the others, and handed the task of killing Mara to them. Under Lu Ping's instructions, Samling had already slowed down the growth of his cultivation as much as possible, and focused most of his energy on strengthening his foundation. However, his cultivation had already reached the 8th stage of the core forging realm. With Samling's top-tier bloodline of the Green Sea Snake, although he could not possibly have the same level of strength as Lu Ping, it was almost impossible for an ordinary practitioner at the peak of the core forging realm to win against them. Moreover, if the three of them joined forces, even an early Dharma adept would not be able to gain the upper hand against them. As for Lu Dagui, although his cultivation was slightly weaker, he had already reached the 4th stage of the core forging realm. He had extremely strong defensive abilities. If he were to fight with someone, he might not be a match for a practitioner of the same level, but when it came to taking a beating, perhaps even a practitioner at the 6th stage of the core forging realm would not be able to hurt him at all. Lu Ping had always wanted to go to the South Sea. In addition to wanting to experience the customs of the South Sea's cultivation world, the practitioners of the Bagui clan, the only direct bloodline left behind by Taoist Gui, were also a unique sight in the South Sea. Lu Dagui could barely be considered a mid-tier monster. After refining a type of demon turtle bloodline that was related to the Bagui clan during the blood condensation realm, his grade had risen to the level of a high-tier monster. Otherwise, Lu Ping would not have allowed him to participate in the mission of encircling and killing Mara in this cave. Lu Qiner originally did not want to come out. After Lu Ping broke the restriction at the entrance, the cave had long been submerged in seawater. Lu Qiner cultivated both wind and fire. Originally, fighting at the bottom of the sea was not her forte. However, she was currently at the 8th stage of the core forging realm like Samling. In fact, she had even advanced to the 8th stage before Samling. Her strength was also comparable to Samling's. Although the environment at the bottom of the sea affected her strength, it was not too serious. After Lu Ping released everyone, he let them do whatever they wanted. Except for Dagui and Lu Qiner, Samling acted alone. As for Lu Ping himself, he followed the direction of the source of the large spirit vein. Although this cave extended in all directions, it was like a tree branch with a main branch. This branch was the source of the large spirit vein on the treasure ship. At the source, there was an invisible restriction that separated the cave from the source. Lu Ping reached out and pressed hard on the restriction. A bluish-purple light quickly spread around Lu Ping's palm. However, Lu Ping's bluish-purple inner yuan only spread to a radius of a foot before the restriction was surrounded by a white halo. Then, the halo converged toward the center. The bluish-purple inner yuan that Lu Ping had produced was suddenly squeezed and finally returned to his palm. Lu Ping's palm shook violently, and his whole body was shaken back 2 or 3 steps before he could stand firm. There was a look of shock on his face. If this restriction was really set up by Blood Shura or Blood Demon, it would not be so strong. Then the identity of the creator of Mara's lair was obvious. It had to be at least a Jade Shura. During the Battle of Frost Island, there were only 4 Jade Shuras in Mara's army. Now, they were all being hunted down by the mid-Dharma adepts of the North Sea. No one knew which of the 4 Jade Shuras this lair belonged to. As for the possibility that this lair had been created by a Jura, although it was impossible, in the tens of thousands of years since the great calamity of the cultivation world, there had been many Blood Shura and Jade Shura lairs, but no one had ever found an Azura's lair. Lu Ping did not think that he would be so lucky as to find an Azura's lair that had never appeared in the cultivation world. Now that he knew the identity of the Azura who had set up this restriction, Lu Ping had a way to deal with it. There was a flash of light in his hand, and a 5-colored restriction breaking talisman appeared in Lu Ping's hand. He slapped it on the layer of restriction. It was not that the restriction set up by the Jade Shura was difficult to break, but that the Jade Shura's restriction was connected to the source of the large spirit vein behind it. That was why Lu Ping had no choice but to use a precious 5-colored restriction breaking talisman. Hopefully, the source of this large spirit vein had something that would make Lu Ping use the 5-colored restriction breaking talisman. The 5-colored light spread quickly on the light screen, and then the light suddenly became so bright that it destroyed the layer of light in an instant. Lu Ping was about to walk behind the restriction when he shouted, "Oh no!" He saw dozens of Shuras hiding behind the layer of restriction shout and attack Lu Ping with their accompanying treasures and half-life ritual implements. Although this light screen could block Lu Ping and Lu Ping's divine telekinesis, it did not seem to stop Mara from entering. Lu Ping did not expect there to be so many Mara hiding behind the light screen. When the restriction light screen was opened, he almost fell into their trap. Fortunately, Lu Ping did not want to use the water moon pearl, so he put the cloud sail on his body to resist the water pressure at the bottom of the sea. The dozens of attacks hit Lu Ping at the same time. In the past, Lu Ping would have been seriously injured. But now, he had the cloud sail, which was a thunder spirit treasure, to protect him. The attacks that hit Lu Ping only made him angry. Even so, Lu Ping was already angry. If it was not for the cloud sail, Lu Ping would have suffered a loss. He stretched out his hand and patted his chest. The 7 thunder treasures calabash soared into the air and attacked the dozens of Mara that were in chaos after seeing that Lu Ping was unharmed. Although the 7 thunder treasures calabash had not condensed the 7th spirit cultivation restriction, and the thunder spirit technique of the 7 thunder treasures calabash had not reached the level of a great spirit technique, but its power could not be underestimated. Not to mention, the 7 bolts of Een lightning struck together. In an instant, the dozens of Mara were shrouded in it. The small Mara, whose cultivation had not reached the core forging stage, could not even withstand a single one of the Een lightning. Even the big Mara could not withstand 3 or 4 bolts of such dense lightning. Only a few great Azuras at the late core forging stage were able to escape from the 7 thunder treasures calabash. However, Lu Ping shook the 7 thunder treasures calabash, and a bolt of 7-colored divine lightning shot out. The few great Azuras immediately vanished into thin air. At this time, Ling Long jumped out from behind Lu Ping. She pointed to a blue liquid in a small pool not far away and shouted, "Ha! The origin essence!" Lu Ping was startled. He found that his body was surrounded by a rich spiritual energy. He looked up and saw that there was a small pool at the source of the spirit vein. The small pool was filled with a milky white liquid. It was the spirit vein essence milk, a high-grade heaven-step spirit treasure. However, Lu Ping, who had seen the spirit vein essence milk, did not arouse much interest in Lu Ping. What really excited Lu Ping was the fist-sized blue liquid in the center of the spirit vein essence milk. It was the origin essence of the water attribute. Chapter 934. Origin Essence. Not only Linglong, but Ruyu also came out of the golden house and walked quickly behind Linglong towards the small pool. Lu Ping suddenly thought of something. He strode forward and pushed the two artifact spirits to the side. Then, he took out a jade essence bottle from his storage mystic instrument and carefully stored away the ball of origin essence wrapped in the spirit vein milk. This was the origin essence that had no owner. It was much richer and purer than the origin essence that Linglong had collected from the fallen blood Shura. Its effects were more miraculous, and it could be preserved for a long period of time. Lu Ping stuck 3 spirit sealing talismans on the full bottle of origin essence. Then he turned to look at a very dissatisfied device spirit behind him. She pouted so much that she could hang an oil bottle on her mouth, and another device spirit with a face full of hidden bitterness. The conditions for the origin essence without an owner were extremely harsh. The origin essence itself contained the essence of spiritual chi from the spiritual vein and the spirituality of heaven and earth treasures. Therefore, it was usually bred in high-grade heaven and earth treasures. Moreover, the formation of these heaven and earth treasures was directly related to the spiritual vein. It could be said that the bigger the spiritual vein and the higher the grade of heaven and earth treasures, the more likely it was to breed origin essence. It was even more precious than heaven and earth treasures. Not only could the origin essence be used to greatly enhance one's cultivation, but it could also be used to enhance the spirituality of the Thunder Retribution spiritual treasure. The level of spirituality of the device spirit directly affected the success or failure of the Thunder Retribution spiritual treasure. This was why Linglong and Ruyu rushed forward at the same time when they saw the origin essence. Although Ruyu was not the device spirit of the treasure, she was the guardian device spirit of the treasure ship. The enhancement of her spirituality would also be of great benefit to her and her future master of the treasure ship. However, the two had obviously underestimated Lu Ping's greed for the origin essence. How could Lu Ping let Linglong and Ruyu obtain something that could directly enhance one's cultivation? He would not even have enough for himself. However, when Lu Ping saw their expressions, he felt a little embarrassed in his heart. He smiled and said, all right. I'll give each of you a drop in the future." Ruyu smiled and thanked him. Although Linglong was somewhat reluctant, having a drop was better than not having a drop at all. However, she did not dare to act spoiled in front of Lu Ping, so she could only agree with a sullen face. After dismissing the two artifact spirits, Lu Ping turned around and put away the spirit vein essence milk in the small pool. If it weren't for the dual nourishment of this large spirit vein and the heaven high-grade water attribute Fei, how could Lu Ping have obtained such a large portion of water attribute origin essence that suited Lu Ping? The Jade Shura had used a restriction to seal the source of the spirit vein. It must have been because she wanted this origin essence. If she used it herself, with her cultivation at the mid-Dharma stage, the effect would not be too obvious. But if she gave it to one of her Shuras, she might be able to produce a blood Mara immediately. The Jade Shura had never used this origin essence, and that was what she had in mind. It was a shame that Lu Ping had benefited from it. There were loud sounds of fighting coming from the cave. With Samling and Lu Qiner's power, they would soon be able to clear out the remnants of Mara in the cave. Lu Ping could even sense that there were already a few Mara that had snuck near the entrance of the cave. They wanted to push away the landslide that Lu Ping had placed at the entrance of the cave and escape. Unfortunately, these Mara were all Shuras that were equivalent to core forging adepts, and yet they were unable to push away the landslide at all. Instead, they revealed their location to Lu Ping. Lu Ping told Linglong to take care of this large spirit vein, so that it wouldn't be affected by other veins or land veins in the future. At the same time, he brought out Debeo, who was hiding in the House of Gold and unwilling to come out. Even with the protection of Lu Ping's inner yuan, Debeo still choked on some water when he came out. He barely managed to put up a protective barrier, but it was only enough to ensure his breathing. "Boss, why is it at the bottom of the sea again?" "Nonsense. Most of the cultivation resources in the overseas cultivation world are at the bottom of the sea." Lu Ping stuffed the water-repelling pearl into Debeo's mouth without any explanation. Then he pushed him into the earth vein at the bottom of the sea. He then released the water nether sword and returned to the entrance of the cave to kill all the Mara that were still pushing away the landslide with all their might. After that, Lu Ping scanned the cave with his divine sense. When he discovered that there were no more traces of the powerful Mara in the cave, he opened the House of Gold again and released Wang Qi. During the chaotic battle on Frost Island, Lu Ping had seen Mara destroy the Dao Soldier formation of Wang Qi's team. Wang Qi himself had been surrounded by several Shuras at the time. Although he knew that Wang Qi still had a life-saving method that Lu Ping had given him, he still took him into the House of Gold just in case. At this time, the powerful Mara in the cave had been eliminated by the Samling. Even if there were some great Shuras among the Mara that had escaped, they were only at the early or middle stage of the core forging realm. With Wang Qi's current level of cultivation, he could easily deal with them. It was the perfect place to train his cultivation. If this wasn't the lair of a Jade Shura, and if the Jade Shura hadn't broken through the encirclement of the sects in the North Sea and returned, this place would have been a secret cultivation ground with the support of such a large spirit vein. Lu Ping stayed in the cave for half a day, but he didn't personally attack Mara in the cave. Instead, he looked around the cave, but he didn't find anything special. But when Debeo came out of the spirit vein, he brought Lu Ping disappointing news. This large spirit vein that had been submerged in the sea for 4,000 years had not produced a single spirit-gathering orb. Linglong said, "Master, don't forget that this spirit vein is Mara's lair. Mara devours spirits, and they have the same talent as Debeo in finding spirits. Their talent might even be better than Debeo's. Otherwise, why would Mara's lair be found near spirit veins or spirit stone mines? The spirit pulse hasn't been wiped out by the Mara race, and that's because of the Jade Shura. But if you want them to keep the spirit orbs in the spirit pulse, it's going to be hard on them." Lu Ping thought Linglong's words made sense, so he waved his hand and took Debeo, who didn't want to stay in the sea any longer, into the Golden House. At this time, Lu Ping felt something. When he looked down, he saw a jade charm on his waist shatter. Lu Ping's face changed, and he quickly called Samling, Lu Qiner, Wang Qi, and De Gue to the entrance of the cave. Before San Ling and the others could ask for the reason, Lu Ping had already opened the door of the Golden House and stuffed them inside. He then waved his hand and put away the landslide at the entrance of the Golden House. After that, he turned into a stream of water and used the water escape technique to pass through the hole created by the treasure ship. However, he didn't go back the way he came from. Instead, he changed directions and traveled dozens of miles away. At this time, a strong aura suddenly exploded from the hole where the treasure ship had sunk behind Lu Ping. It seemed to contain infinite anger, but the aura only flashed for a moment, as if it was afraid of something. Lu Ping sighed in his heart. If he hadn't been careful and laid down dozens of warning charms along the way, the Jade Shura would have been able to detect or avoid most of them. But if one was triggered, Lu Ping would have had a chance to escape before it returned to its lair. Otherwise, he would have been caught by the Jade Shura instead. Lu Ping didn't have a choice. Although the Jade Shura was afraid that the human and demon cultivators would discover its nest and wouldn't dare to hunt down the intruders, Lu Ping didn't dare to go back to the treasure ship to check out the Jade Shura. After coming out of the sea, Lu Ping didn't dare to stop at all. The ship drew a thick bluish-purple line under his feet, and he flew back to Frost Island at almost full speed. In the Battle of Frost Island, Mara's army had failed because of the unexpected alliance between the humans and demons. But the humans and demons struck while the iron was hot and wanted to eliminate the root of the problem. Even if they couldn't eliminate Mara's disaster while it was still budding, they wanted to greatly weaken the disaster this time. Therefore, after Mara's defeat, the human and demon cultivators, including the Dharma adepts, continued to chase and kill the fleeing Mara tribe. After Lu Ping returned to Frost Island, There were a total of 3 Jinling Dharma Laozu guarding Frost Island. Tian Shu Laozu was in charge of dispatching and guarding, while Tianlu Laozu had specially rushed to Frost Island from Tianling Mountain to treat Tian Cheng Laozu's injuries. After Lu Ping returned to Frost Island, Tian Shu Laozu let out a sigh of relief. At this time, most of the Dharma adepts had already gone out to kill Mara's remnants. Frost Island could be considered to be empty now. Although there were 3 Dharma Laozu guarding Jinling, Tian Cheng Laozu had not recovered from his injuries, and Tian Shu Laozu also knew that he was not strong enough. Otherwise, he wouldn't be guarding Frost Island. The others were all out to kill Mara's remnants. As for Tianlu Laozu, he was originally an alchemist. His advancement to the Dharma stage was a trick, so his strength was at most equal to Tian Shu Laozu's, or maybe even weaker. After the battle on Frost Island, the relationship between Lu Ping and Tian Shu Laozu had somewhat eased. Lu Ping's strength was already obvious to all. With 2 spirit treasures in hand and 4 flying swords, he was someone that even Blood Shura dared to fight alone. With this kind of strength, even a mid-Dharma adept like Lu Ping would not be able to do anything to him. After seeing Tian Shu Laozu, Lu Ping had no time to care about the previous awkwardness between them. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Uncle Master, is Uncle Master Tian Xiang around?" Tian Shu Laozu knew that Lu Ping's position in the sect was probably higher than his. For him to ask about Tian Xiang Laozu's whereabouts in such a hurry, there must be something extremely important. Thus, he did not ask Lu Ping for the reason and said, "Uncle Master Tian Xiang, Daoxing Laozu, and the 2 great adepts of the primordial crocodile clan have joined forces to kill that Azura. Until now, there has been no news. However, Uncle Master Tian Kong, Uncle Master Tian Shui, and Master Tian Fan Laozu can be contacted." As expected, Lu Ping nodded and said, "If the 3 Uncle Masters have no urgent matters to attend to, please send a message to ask them to return." Chapter 935. Although the North Sea cultivators won the battle on Frost Island, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Due to Jinling's strong foundation and the fact that a large number of cultivators were stationed on Frost Island, the number of casualties was kept to a minimum. The losses suffered by the other sects could only be described as bone deep. Jinling guarded the largest area on Frost Island, so they suffered the most casualties. Almost half of the 1,000 blood condensation disciples died, and more than a third of the 100 core forging cultivators died. At the same time, they also lost a Dharma adept, the Heaven Attainment Laozu, who lost his last chance to advance to the mid-Dharma stage due to severe injuries to his core. Jinling's losses were already so severe. Even if the other sects' casualties were lighter than Jinling's, they did not have Jinling's foundation to squander. After all, 30 to 50 core forging cultivators were only a tenth of Jinling's total core forging cultivators. If the other sects had a third or even half of their total core forging cultivators, this was a devastating blow to the sections. Especially at the last moment of the Frost Island's grand formation, Mara's army gave up on Jinling's stronghold and began to attack the Spirit Stone Mine at the center of Frost Island. After the protective barrier was broken, the cultivators from the other sects paid a devastating price in order to stop Mara's army from entering the Spirit Stone Mine. As a result, after Mara's army was defeated, the other sects and major forces could not spare enough forces to guard and surround Mara, who had taken advantage of the chaos to hide in the Spirit Stone Mine. Jinling took the opportunity to send spiritual master Xian Sen and a group of Jinling cultivators into the Spirit Stone Mine to eliminate Mara. Then, Jinling immediately sent a group of blood condensation disciples led by a few core forging cultivators from Tianling Mountain to the Spirit Stone Mine. By the time reinforcements from the other sects arrived and began to eliminate Mara, Jinling had already occupied half of the Spirit Stone Mine. Naturally, Jinling would not accept this as a fait accompli, but at least Jinling had reaped enough benefits in the process of eliminating Mara. Although the other sects were secretly unhappy, the most important thing now was to chase after the fleeing Mara. In the entire North Sea, other than Jinling, no other sect could guarantee that they would have enough forces to continue eliminating Mara in the Spirit Stone Mine while chasing after Mara. The other sects could only watch as Jinling secretly reaped all the benefits. After Tian Shu Laozu sent out the sound transmission sword, Zhenling and the other two mid-Dharma adepts did not know how long it would take for them to return. Thus, Lu Ping hurriedly walked towards the secret chamber of the palace. Unexpectedly, along the way, he happened to see Zhang Xuanqing leading a group of fourth-generation blood condensation disciples out of the teleportation portal. Lu Ping immediately saw Du Jialua among the group of fourth-generation disciples. This time, Lu Ping did not avoid the others. After greeting Zhenren Zhang Xuanqing, he called Du Jialua aside under the envious gazes of the other fourth-generation disciples. "Where are your senior brother Xing, senior brother Fong, and senior sister Fong?" Previously, Lu Ping had sent the three of them to Huanyu Island, where the ruins of the vast sea relic were located, to collect a few rare spiritual materials that they had missed. Now, it was obvious that the four of them had completed the task that Lu Ping had given them. Seeing that Du Jialua was alone, Lu Ping opened his mouth and asked about the whereabouts of the other three. Du Jialua took out a storage bag and handed it to Lu Ping. Then, he said, "The three senior brothers and senior sisters are now in closed-door training. I estimate that when they come out, they will already be Zhenren in the core forging stage." Lu Ping nodded, but his face did not show any expression. Instead, he thought of Du Jialua and asked, "You are now at the 9th level of the core forging stage. Why didn't you go into closed-door training with them?" Du Jialua answered honestly, "I feel that my foundation is not yet solid enough, so I want to make my cultivation more solid." Lu Ping nodded to himself. Although the Fong siblings and Zheng Wu were also brave and determined to improve, in the process of training, they often did not need a reasonable increase in their cultivation level. Cultivation was always a process of repeated competition between one's lifespan and one's cultivation base. This was also the reason why many cultivators in the cultivation world held a reasonable but rapid increase in cultivation base. As long as it did not affect one's own cultivation base, the pursuit of cultivation speed would always be the main theme of cultivators' cultivation. After all, only by increasing one's cultivation level would a cultivator have more lifespan and energy to break through the next bottleneck. The time that a cultivator saved before breaking through each bottleneck could be used up during the next breakthrough. Therefore, all cultivators had to shorten the cultivation time before breaking through each bottleneck as much as possible in order to prepare for emergencies. However, in Lu Ping's view, the true wisdom of cultivators did not lie in shortening the cultivation time needed for a breakthrough as much as possible. Instead, it lay in the courage to give up. Give up on the cultivation level that could have been broken through a long time ago, and give up on the cultivation time that could have been saved. And these abandoned times should be used to polish one's own foundation, to strengthen one's own foundation. As the saying goes, sharpening a knife does not delay the work of cutting firewood. However, everyone understood this principle, but which cultivator could truly let go and wholeheartedly use time to polish their foundation? Most people found it difficult to find a balance between the two. In the past, Wang Qi's cultivation level had already reached the peak of the blood condensation realm. However, he had been stuck there for decades, unable to break through to the core forging realm. He wanted to lay down a solid foundation. The Fong siblings and Zheng Wu could not compare to Wang Qi in terms of cultivation level and aptitude. Now, they had to blindly pursue the growth of their cultivation level. With Lu Ping's help, the three of them might be able to successfully advance to the core forging realm. However, compared to Wang Qi, their future path would only get narrower and narrower. On the contrary, although Du Jialua was also a genius who cultivated earth attribute techniques, he was able to patiently polish his cultivation level. If he did not die prematurely in the future, his achievements would be limitless. Lu Ping clapped his hands, and Debao walked out from behind Lu Ping. Du Jialua's eyes lit up, and he said, "Martial Uncle Debao?" Lu Ping said, "I heard that there are more than 1,000 devil luos swarming into the spirit stone mine this time. Although these demonic cultivators don't have the strength to completely destroy the spirit stone mine, they will more or less cause some damage to the spirit stone mine. Although it's a training mission for the disciples like you, it's also very dangerous. This time, your martial Uncle Debao will go with you." Du Jialua nodded, and then he heard Lu Ping say, Although there are enlightened masters in the spirit stone mine, the mine is crisscrossed. Even a core forging master will find it difficult to take care of everything. You must remember that the enemy in the spirit stone mine is not only Mara, but also cultivators from other sections. As the saying goes, do not have the heart to harm others, but do not have the heart to let them go. Sometimes, cultivators from other sects may be even more vicious than Mara. Debeo turned around, and a yellow smoke dispersed. The spirit-seeking mouse shrank to the size of a palm and scuttled into Du Jialua's sleeve. After sending Du Jialua away, Lu Ping walked into the secret room and took out the interspatial mystic artifact he obtained from the treasure ship's secret cabin. Lu Ping poured out everything in the storage mystic instrument. But other than some spirit materials, mystic instruments, a few low-grade mystic treasures, and a few jade slips that Lu Ping wasn't interested in, there was almost nothing else in the storage mystic instrument. Lu Ping thought about it. After this cultivator was sealed in the secret cabin, in order to maintain his life and cultivation, all the elixirs, spiritual herbs, spirit stones, and other things that could be eaten and used for cultivation were used up by the friar. In the end, he did not escape the fate of death, and there were only these bits and pieces left in the storage magic tool. Lu Ping used his hand to push the pile of things, and there was a clang. Lu Ping looked over and found that there was nothing on the ground. Where did the sound come from? A cyan light lit up in Lu Ping's eyes, and a looming flying sword outline appeared in front of Lu Ping. Invisible flying sword? Lu Ping was overjoyed. So there was this kind of luck. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and the flying sword immediately flew into Lu Ping's hand. Bluish-purple vital energy surged into the flying sword. The flying sword was dyed by the vital energy, and it revealed its original form in front of Lu Ping. Unfortunately, it was only an invisible flying sword with 4 treasures. Its quality was not even as good as the water ghost sword. The enthusiasm in Lu Ping's heart was inevitably extinguished, but when he saw the jade slips on the ground, the flames of hope in Lu Ping's heart rose again. As expected, after Lu Ping crushed the 3 jade slips, he finally found what he wanted in the 4th jade slip. The complete inheritance of the invisible sword art, including the invisible sword secret art, the method to refine the invisible sword, and a total of 9 treasures. It was the treasure that Lu Ping had been seeking for decades. Lu Ping was immediately overjoyed, and then he patiently looked through the remaining 2 jade slips. In the end, a trace of surprise appeared on his face, and he finally kept the last jade slip. After looking through the storage artifact, Lu Ping took out the small bottle of water attribute origin essence that he had obtained in the Azura's lair. When Lu Ping had killed the Blood Azura in the Battle of Frost Island, he had absorbed a trace of water attribute origin essence through Linglong. However, just this trace of essence had saved Lu Ping almost 3 years of cultivation. Now, this small bottle full of origin essence could push Lu Ping's cultivation all the way to that realm? Lu Ping stretched out his finger and carefully drew a small drop of origin essence from the jade bottle into his palm. Then, Lu Ping put his palms together, and a blue light immediately flashed between his palms. He began to refine this origin essence. In the blink of an eye, another half a day had passed. Just as Lu Ping finished refining this origin essence, Lu Ping could clearly feel that his cultivation had increased significantly. At this moment, a crack appeared in front of Lu Ping, and a sound transmission talisman appeared from the crack. Lu Ping took the sound transmission talisman and listened for a moment. Then he stood up and walked out of the secret room. Chapter 936. Kid, why did you call us back in such a hurry? In the Ice Palace, Tian Fan, Tian Shui, and Tian Kong, the 3 mid-Dharmajinling Laozu, saw Lu Ping enter in a hurry. Tian Kong Laozu was the first to speak. We finally found traces of a blood shura a few thousand miles away. We were about to chase after it, but Tian Shu called us back with a message glyph. That blood shura could mean that we have a companion spiritual treasure. During the Battle of Frost Island and the days after that, the Sea Fire sect had killed a blood shura and obtained a companion spiritual treasure. Then, it was said that 4 of the 12 small forces Dharma Laozu had joined forces to kill a blood Shura and obtained a companion spiritual treasure. However, 2 of the Dharma Laozu had been severely injured by the Shura's self-destruction before it died. Before and after the Battle of Jinling, including the blood Shura that Lu Ping had killed, a total of 1 jade Shura, 2 blood Shuras, and 1 blood demon had died by Jinling's hand. His battle record was the most glorious among all the sects in the North Sea. Even among the demons, perhaps only the primordial crocodile clan could compare to Jinling. However, what made Patriarch Tian Kong angry was that Jinling's sect had not obtained a single perfect companion spiritual treasure. This included the Jade Shura that Patriarch Tian Kong and the other 2 mid-Dharma adepts had killed. When they had killed the demonic Shura, their companion spiritual treasures had also been destroyed. At most, they had obtained some broken pieces of their spiritual treasures to improve the quality of their spiritual treasures. Lu Ping smiled slightly and said, "Master Uncle, how is the trail of a Jade Shura?" Old Ancestor Tian Kong was stunned when he heard that. Even Old Ancestor Tian Fan and Old Ancestor Tian Shui looked at Lu Ping in astonishment. "You found traces of Jade Shura, and that is why you asked Sky Technique to summon us back?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, "I'm afraid we'll need Elder Master Tian Xiang this time. The Jade Shura is just a bonus. It's a pity that Martial Uncle Tian Lin isn't here. Otherwise, with the help of Martial Uncle Tian Lin, this mission would be foolproof." The 3 Laozus frowned. According to what Lu Ping had said, he wanted to gather all of Jinling's best fighters. Did Lu Ping not only find 1 Jade Shura, but 2? However, the 3 of them knew that Lu Ping wasn't someone who spoke without thinking. So, Tian Kong Laozu immediately waved his hand and said, "Kid, what exactly is it? Don't beat around the bush." Lu Ping smiled awkwardly before he said seriously, "I found the wreckage of Fei Ling Sec's treasured ship that sank at the bottom of the ocean." Pooh. Tian Fan Laozu, who had just drunk a mouthful of hot tea, didn't even have time to swallow it. He asked anxiously, "What? But how did you find it?" Tian Shui Laozu, who was beside him, looked at Tian Fan Laozu unhappily and said, "If that's the case, we should ask senior brother Tian Xiang to come back and take charge." At this time, Tian Fan Laozu also calmed down and nodded. "That's right. If it's really a treasured ship, just raising it from the bottom of the ocean would require a great cultivator to do it. If junior sister Tian Shui and the old man were to work together, they might be able to do it. But if we want to hide it from the North Sea sects and the Demon Clan, and secretly escort it to Tianling Mountain, we'll need senior brother Tian Xiang to do it." Tian Kong Laozu was already impatient. With a flip of his wrist, a purple magic sword appeared in his hand. He said, "Then what are we waiting for? The old man will use the magic sword to summon senior brother Tian Xiang." Tian Fan Laozu stretched out his hand to stop Tian Kong Laozu. He said, "There's no hurry. Senior brother Tian Xiang is currently working with 3 other great cultivators to kill Azura. There's still no news of Azura until now. I think Azura is still fighting with them. If senior brother Tian Xiang suddenly stops, not only will the other great cultivators not agree to it, but Azura might also turn around and attack them one by one. The place where the treasured ship sunk without being discovered for 4,000 years must be an extremely secretive place. We're not in a hurry to avoid attracting the attention of the other sects." In fact, Tian Fan Laozu still had a hidden meaning. After all, Azura was the main culprit of Mara's calamity on Frost Island. If they couldn't kill it or severely injure it, it would definitely make a comeback in the future and harm the cultivation world of the North Sea once again. Tian Kong Laozu helplessly put down the magic sword in his hand. Then, he thought of something and said, "Then why don't we work together to kill that Jade Azura first?" Tian Kong Laozu was still brooding over the fact that he couldn't get the companion spiritual treasure from Mara. Tian Shui Laozu shook his head and said, "According to Martial Nephew Lu, that Jade Azura should be the water Azura that escaped from Feng Shutao and the others. That Azura saw the opportunity early and escaped without any injuries. The 3 of us working together might be able to defeat it, but it will definitely cause a huge commotion and attract the attention of other sects and demon race cultivators. At that time, It doesn't matter if the Jade Azura dies in our hands. If the location of the treasured ship's wreckage is exposed, it won't be worth it. Tian Kong Laozu was very disappointed when he heard that. At this time, the entire North Sea's cultivation world was moving to search for Mara's traces. If they were late, the Jade Azura might not even be able to hide in the lair. It should be known that Lu Ping had already alerted the Jade Azura when he sneaked into the lair. In the end, it was still Tian Shui Laozu who said, "No matter what, we still have to let senior brother Tianxiang know about this first. At the same time, we will also tell senior brother our thoughts. Whether or not he wants to return immediately, it will be up to him." Tian Kong Laozu was overjoyed when he heard that. The sword in his hand was already prepared. With a push, the sword pierced through the void and disappeared. Lu Ping returned to the secret chamber to continue refining the origin essence. During this time, Tianlu Laozu came by once. However, the two of them were helpless when it came to Tian Cheng Laozu's damaged origin essence. In the end, they could only give up helplessly. A month later, a shocking piece of news swept through the entire North Sea's cultivation world. News came from the Deep Sea Demon region. During the battle between humans and demons against Mara, giant whale demon King Kongjing Laozu, who had not shown his face all this while, had successfully passed the second Thunder Trial. He became the 5th Dharma adept in the entire North Sea's cultivation world. At the same time, he was also the 3rd Dharma adept in the demon race, and the 1st Dharma adept apart from the primordial crocodile clan. At this time, the humans and demons had joined forces to kill Mara. The news of 4 Dharma adepts chasing after Azura had also reached Kongjing Demon King's ears. Following that, Kongjing Demon King announced in a high-profile manner that he would help the other 4 Dharma adepts to kill Azura. No one knew how Kongjing Demon King found out about the whereabouts of the 4 Dharma adepts and rushed over alone. The emergence of a Dharma adept was enough to stir up the entire situation in the North Sea's cultivation world. Ever since Tian Xiang Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, although the humans and demons were still in a state of roughly equal strength in the North Sea's cultivation world, the human race cultivators had long gained the upper hand in the overall situation. This was especially so with the rise of Jinling. After Jinling had occupied Huangli Island, the demon race cultivators had repeatedly failed to take it down. If it weren't for the other sects in the North Sea having their own concerns and the fact that the humans were not united, the demon race would have long been suppressed by the human race cultivators to the point where they could not even lift their heads. However, after the battle on Frost Island, the human race cultivators had suffered heavy losses. The demon race, on the other hand, had been waiting at ease. Even if there were losses, it was because they had joined forces with the human race cultivators to hunt down Mara. Compared to the human race, the demon race's losses were undoubtedly much smaller. Fortunately, the demon race was not united. The giant whale demon clan was one of the only 2 top-tier demon clans in the North Sea. In the past, they had always been suppressed by the primordial crocodile clan. However, in the eyes of the giant whale demon clan, the primordial crocodile clan had always been an outsider, a stray dog that had fled to the North Sea after being defeated by the Green Sea Snake in the East Sea. During the battle for the vast sea treasure, Demon King Kongjing would rather join forces with Jinling than lend a hand to the primordial crocodile clan's Ao Dian Laozu. This was proof of this. Now that Demon King Kongjing had become a Dharma adept, the human race would naturally take action. However, the demon race would also experience a redistribution of power. The real headache would be the primordial crocodile clan. After another month, the 5 Dharma adepts had returned to their respective sects and clans. The Azura had finally escaped, but its companion spiritual treasure had also been destroyed by the 5 Dharma adepts. After being seriously injured, the Azura had escaped into the stormy ocean alone. The 5 great Laozu clans had no choice but to give up on the pursuit of the Azura. However, before the Azura had escaped into the stormy ocean, its source had been damaged by the 5 great Laozu clans, causing it to degenerate into a Jade Shura. Even if it returned to the North Sea, a Jade Shura without its companion spiritual treasure would not be able to cause much trouble. The battle on Frost Island could be considered to have come to an end. In this battle, because the humans and demons had joined forces, a total of 1 Azura had been severely injured and demoted, 2 Jade Shuras had perished, and more than 10 Blood Mara clans had been killed by the humans and demons. As for the other Mara clan's army, the number of casualties was uncountable. As for the cultivation world of the North Sea, other than the huge losses suffered by the human race cultivators, the losses suffered by the demon race were initially negligible. However, on the eve of the return of the few great cultivators, a Dharma adept from the Walrus clan was ambushed when he went out to kill Luo. He was surrounded and killed by the combined forces of a Blood Shura and a Blood Demon. More than 10 Walrus core forging cultivators and more than 100 blood condensation demonic beasts from the Walrus clan were slaughtered. The entire Walrus clan seemed to have suffered a devastating blow, casting a shadow over the great victory of the demon race this time. The various sects of the North Sea that had gathered on Frost Island, other than leaving behind the necessary cultivators to guard the place, began to leave one after another. Junling was no exception. Other than the 2 Laozu clans, Tianshan and Tianshu, the other few Laozu clans led a portion of their disciples back to Junling. In reality, not long after returning to Junling, Tianxiang Laozu and the other 3 Middle Dharma adepts, Laozu clans, once again secretly snuck back to the depths of the sea hundreds of miles away from Frost Island. They began to secretly search for traces of the treasured shipwreckage and the Jade Shura's cave according to the address Lu Ping had left behind. At this time, Lu Ping was still in the secret room on Frost Island, cultivating in seclusion to refine the origin essence. By the time he had finished refining the small bottle of origin essence, Lu Ping had pushed his own cultivation all the way to the last step, and he had clearly begun to touch the barrier of the Dharma stage. In the core space, the huge golden Dan was only left with a thin layer, and the 9 seal patterns on the surface of the golden Dan had also become much fainter. Only the strange dragon was moving around in the golden Dan, as if it could break through the thin layer and appear in the core space at any time. Chapter 937. Lu Ping had been in seclusion on Frost Island for more than half a year. Because he had the help of the origin essence, the effect of this half a year of seclusion was equivalent to 20 to 30 years of cultivation. However, to be able to push Lu Ping's cultivation to the last step of the Dharma manifestation stage in just 20 to 30 years, it wasn't completely because of the origin essence. Around the huge golden core in Lu Ping's heart space, the innermost layer of the Dan Xia purple aura was still surrounding an indescribable thing. Before Lu Ping had reached the peak of the core forging stage, this layer had always been surrounding Lu Ping's golden core. Even when Lu Ping had reached the 9th grade golden core, it didn't have any effect at all. However, after Lu Ping had reached the 9th grade golden core, this layer seemed to have been awakened by the strange dragon within the golden core and started to be absorbed by the strange dragon through the golden core. Although the process was extremely slow, it had unwittingly affected Lu Ping's cultivation significantly. However, during the past 6 months of closed-door cultivation, Lu Ping was able to refine the origin essence at a much faster rate. Perhaps it was due to the origin essence's influence, but as he refined the origin essence, the strange Jiao's rate of absorption gradually increased. This was also the reason why Lu Ping was able to push his cultivation base to its current level in just half a year. This mysterious layer was none other than the pure yang soul that Lu Ping had obtained from Ying Tian Sect's pure yang cultivator, Fei Tian Laozu's inheritance in the Ying Tian dojo. When Lu Ping came out of seclusion, he found that only Tianshan Laozu was left guarding Frost Island. Tianshan Laozu had disappeared at some point. Tianshan Laozu had obviously discovered that Lu Ping had come out of seclusion. In Lu Ping's perception, Tianshan Laozu's figure suddenly disappeared. Tianshan Laozu had obviously used a spatial divine ability to come to him. Lu Ping was slightly stunned. He had just come out of seclusion and hadn't gone to greet Tianshan Laozu. As a senior, Tianshan Laozu had come out to greet him. There must be something urgent. Otherwise, Tianshan Laozu wouldn't do this. The space in front of Lu Ping rippled. Tianshan Laozu stepped out. Seeing Lu Ping, he said, "Daoshi is dead. Senior brother Tianshu has returned to Tianling Mountain." Lu Ping's expression immediately changed. Junior brother Yin Xianchu has returned to North Sea? Guotianshan Laozu nodded and said, when Daoshi was assassinated, there were Xianling sect cultivators around. Yin Xianchu killed 3 of them and broke out of the encirclement despite being heavily injured. Right now, he is being chased by cultivators from Xianling, Vast Ocean, Haiyan, Feiyu, and Linggu sects. At the same time, the sects from North Sea are also working together to pressure us to hand over Yin Xianchu. Lu Ping said angrily, junior brother Yin Xianchu broke out of the sect long ago and is no longer a disciple of our sect. How dare they do this? Patriarch of Tanshan smiled bitterly and said, back then, the few of you caused such a huge commotion in the North Sea. How could the other sects believe you? They would only think that it was a ploy by our faction behind the scenes. Lu Ping suddenly thought of something and said, Senior Uncle Tian Shu, going back at this time, could it be? Tianshan Laozu sighed and said, there's no other way. Our sect has no choice but to do this. After all, this time, the sects of North Sea are working together to pressure us. The 11 small sects and families are also supporting them. Our sect has no choice but to do this. Senior brother Tian Shu has already started searching for Yin Xianchu in North Sea under senior sister Tian Ling's order. When Lu Ping heard that it was his teacher's order, he could only suppress his anger. He took a deep breath and said, this doesn't seem like teacher style. Is there any other reason? Tianshan Laozu nodded and said, there seems to be the shadow of the Crystal Palace, but the main reason is that all the sects are afraid after the Vast Ocean Relic and the Battle of Frost Island. The strength that our sect has displayed is far beyond the other sects' reach. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, is there any movement from the demon race? At this time, what he was most afraid of was that the demon race would take the opportunity to collude with Mysterious Spirit, Vast Ocean, and other sections. Tianshan Laozu also understood what Lu Ping meant and said, fortunately, after Demon King Kong Jing broke through to the late Dharma stage, the Deep Sea Demon region is not peaceful now. Also, there is news that a large number of Mara have appeared somewhere in the Deep Sea Demon region. I'm afraid the demon race will not be able to care about this place for now. Only then did Lu Ping remember that Tianshan Laozu did not rush to see him just to tell him this news. He asked, Senior Uncle, do you have any orders? Tianshan Laozu said, it's not my orders. Senior Sister Tianling asked you to return to Tianling Mountain as soon as possible after you come out of seclusion. Lu Ping nodded and said, all right then, I won't stay here any longer. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a flash of light under his feet and he was about to fly towards the teleportation device. However, he suddenly thought of something and stopped to ask, Senior Uncle, how is the large spirit stone mine in the center of the island now? Tianshan Laozu knew what he wanted to ask and said, the Mara inside has been eliminated, but the mine has been damaged to a certain extent. In the next few years, there may be a certain degree of decline in the mine's production. Fortunately, the damage is not serious, and it will recover on its own after a period of time. After returning to Tianling Mountain, Lu Ping did not immediately go to see Tianling Laozu. Instead, he hurried to the crafting hall with a heavy heart. However, he found that the crafting hall was currently deserted. In the past, the bustle of the crafting hall was second only to that of the elixir pavilion. Lu Ping frowned as he entered the crafting hall. Only then did he realize that the entire crafting hall, including Tianshan Laozu and the ordinary core forging realm artificers, was not in the crafting hall. Only a few blood condensation realm disciples who were learning artificing were in the crafting hall. Lu Ping slapped his head as if he had thought of something. Then he walked out of the crafting hall and headed towards the puppet pavilion. There was only one possibility for the crafting hall's cultivators to disappear en masse. Tianling Laozu and the others had secretly transported the treasure ship from the sea outside Frost Island to Tianling Mountain. The cultivators of the crafting hall had naturally been summoned to prepare to repair the treasure ship. This was the true symbol of Zhenling's rise. No wonder Zhenling was so secretive. Ji Xianxian had been depressed for a period of time after losing to Ouyang Weijin a few decades ago. Later, he was inspired by Lu Ping and pulled himself together. Ji Xianxian had been in a state of semi-seclusion for the next few decades. Even after Lu Ping returned from the Middle Earth, Ji Xianxian hadn't seen him again. Ji Xianxian had always been on the best terms with Yin Xianchu. At this time, Lu Ping didn't believe that Ji Xianxian was still in seclusion. Inside the puppet pavilion, spiritual master Xian Huai was walking outside. He was stunned when he saw Lu Ping walking towards him. Then, he turned around and walked past Lu Ping as if he didn't see him. Lu Ping was about to salute spiritual master Xian Huai when he saw spiritual master Xian Huai acting like this. In the blink of an eye, spiritual master Xian Huai had already walked past Lu Ping in a hurry. Lu Ping turned around to look at spiritual master Xian Huai's shadow, then turned to look at the puppet pavilion. His expression immediately darkened, and then he strode into the puppet pavilion. In the side hall of the puppet pavilion, Lu Ping pushed the door of the side hall. Rays of runes flowed on the door, dispersing all of Lu Ping's strength. Lu Ping frowned and immediately doubled the strength in his hand. However, the door still didn't budge. It's useless. This is a restriction formation personally set up by Martial Uncle Tianfeng. Ji Xuanxuan's voice faintly came from inside the side hall. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "You can see me? Looks like you've already heard about junior brother Yin's matter." Ji Xianxian sighed and said, "I heard that he killed that scum, Dao Shi. I knew that he was going to be in trouble. I originally wanted to help him, but who would have thought that the sect seemed to have already predicted this?" Martial Uncle Tianfeng immediately appeared in front of me and put me under house arrest in this side hall. Ji Xianxian then said, "I heard that you were in the limelight again on Frost Island and then went into seclusion to cultivate. Why are you here now?" Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, "I just came out of seclusion and wanted to find you to understand the situation. You should know that you were already under house arrest, so I couldn't be bothered to come over. I don't think you know much about the situation here." Ji Xianxian said anxiously, You have to think of a way to let me out. Otherwise, Yin Xianchu will really be in trouble." Lu Ping said, "You also know who he killed, Fa Xiang Laozu. Why isn't Dao Sheng jumping around anxiously? At this time, who knows how many people in the North Sea are looking for him? You and I are both his good friends, and who knows how many people are watching us in the open and in the dark. If we really let you out to look for him, that would be harming him. You have to understand that Martial Uncle Tianfeng didn't put you under house arrest to keep you out of this matter, but to protect you, and also to protect him." Ji Xianxian was silent for a moment, then said, "You're right, but I still have to go out. I also know that you will go find him." Lu Ping opened his mouth, but heard Ji Xianxian say again, "Don't worry, I won't go find him. It's just that what's with putting me under house arrest in this side hall?" Lu Ping recalled that Taoist Master Xuanhuai had deliberately pretended not to see him, so he sighed and said, "I'll try, but I've never been to the puppet pavilion today." Ji Xianxian laughed in a low voice, "Do you think I don't know your methods?" A golden light flashed in Lu Ping's palm, and the restriction runes on the door lit up once more. However, after being touched by the golden light in Lu Ping's palm, it began to slowly melt. A moment later, the power of the restriction on the door was greatly reduced due to the destruction of a part of it. Lu Ping took the opportunity to form a few hand seals on the door, and the flickering light of the other runes instantly dimmed and disappeared from the door. Lu Ping pushed the door open and said, "Come out." Ji Xianxian, who was covered in sloppiness, walked out of the side hall and stretched his waist. Lu Ping frowned and said, "How did it end up like this?" Ji Xianxian didn't care at all. He turned around and laughed in a low voice, "Where's that withered willow tree of yours?" Lu Ping was startled and said happily, "What, are you confident now?" Seeing Ji Xianxian nod his head proudly, Lu Ping finally noticed that Ji Xuanxuan's cultivation had already risen to the 8th level of the core forging realm. However, it seemed that he had just broken through, and the aura around his body hadn't completely stabilized yet. This was probably because he was under house arrest. "Oh right." Ji Xianxian seemed to have thought of something and asked, "I remember that you once cultivated the soul-splitting secret technique. Do you still have that piece of soul-nurturing wood?" Seeing Lu Ping nod his head, Ji Xianxian smiled and said, Fortunately, with this spiritual item that has been nurtured and refined by your divine sense, the creation of this avatar can be saved a lot of trouble. Chapter 938. Only Xianling sect was truly angered by Dao Shi's death. However, Dao Shi Laozu's death was an opportunity to restrain Jinling. The Battle of Frost Island once again allowed the sects to see Jinling's schemes and unparalleled strength. The sects of the North Sea knew that if this continued, Jinling might really be unstoppable in the North Sea. In a group, when there was an outstanding person, many people might be willing to follow him. However, when this person's abilities surpassed the limits of most people, this person would be isolated and even viewed with hostility. Jinling's sect was currently facing such a situation. No matter how strong Jinling's sect was as a medium-sized sect, there was a limit to how strong it could be. After all, there were forces in the North Sea that could balance it. However, when Jinling's sect's power gradually began to show signs of surpassing that of a medium-sized sect, it would be faced with the panic of the various sects in the North Sea, and they would have to join forces to contain it. Even the attitudes of Shuiyan Pavilion, Yujin sect, and Chongming sect, which were in alliance with Jinling's sect, had become a little unclear due to Dao Shi's death. Spiritual Master Xian Huai felt that Lu Ping's ability to easily break through the restrictions set by Tian Cheng Laozu was both unexpected and reasonable. However, although he was unwilling to put his disciple under house arrest, he was even more unwilling to see his disciple lose his life because of brotherhood. Hence, after Lu Ping released Ji Xianxian, Jinling's sect's puppet master, Taoist Xian Huai, who had lost all hope of advancing to the avatar realm, began to help his disciple create an avatar for Lu Ping. At the same time, he was also monitoring his disciple closely, lest he took the opportunity to escape from Tianling Mountain to look for Yin Xianchu. Lu Ping originally wanted to go to his two good friends to understand the situation, but he didn't expect to find almost nothing in the end. Helpless, he could only go to the Hall of Chonghua to see his teacher. After Dao Shi Laozu's death, the various forces of the North Sea gradually united to punish Jinling. The various sects' envoys entered and left Heaven Spirit Mountain several times, some with high status, but Jinling was always received by the sect master Lu Tianling, Laozu. Although many envoys and even some first-generation cultivators wanted to meet the few mid-Dharma Laozu and even Tian Cheng Laozu, they were all rejected by Laozu. It was as if Jinling's first-generation cultivators had all disappeared, and everything in Jinling, big or small, had been handed over to Jinling's second-generation cultivators. However, Lu Ping knew that it wasn't because Jinling's first-generation cultivators had given up their power, but because the sect's first-generation cultivators, Laozu, were all focused on repairing the wreckage of Fei Ling's sect's treasured ship. Almost all the craftsmen in the crafting hall had been transferred, so how could they care about other things? Lu Tianling, Laozu, saw Lu Ping come in and smiled. You found out most of the information, right? Tell me, what do you plan to do? Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Does the sect already know the whereabouts of Junior Yin? Lu Tianling, Laozu, looked at Lu Ping in surprise and said, Junior Li Xianin only has one successor, so his inheritance shouldn't be broken. But now, this kid has surpassed his predecessor, and his abilities are even better than Junior Li Xuanin's. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to kill Dao Shi and break out of the encirclement in front of so many Xianling sect cultivators. It won't be easy to find him. Lu Ping was relieved. Obviously, none of the sects in the North Sea had any news of Yin Xianchu. The reason why the sects were pressuring Jinling was probably because they thought that Jinling was secretly protecting Yin Xianchu. Lu Ping thought for a while, then said, I heard that Master has already sent Uncle Master Tian Shu out to search for Junior Yin. Lu Tianling, Laozu, looked at Lu Ping and said, I understand what you're thinking, but this time, our sect has no choice but to do this, because the Crystal Palace has officially begun to intervene in the North Sea's affairs. Lu Ping was shocked. Although the Crystal Palace had the intention to intervene in the North Sea's affairs, they were suppressed by the sects in the North Sea. In the end, they had no choice but to stand behind Xianling's sect and be the driving force behind the scenes. Now that the Crystal Palace had officially stepped onto the stage, why didn't the sects in the North Sea object this time? Lu Tianling, Laozu, seemed to know what Lu Ping was thinking and continued that Yin Xianchu destroyed a lair of the overflowing ocean gang in the East Sea and found a teleportation formation that leads to the North Sea. That's why he snuck into the North Sea. The overflowing ocean gang was an external force of the Crystal Palace. This was almost an open secret in the North Sea. One of the overflowing ocean gang's lair had been destroyed, and dozens of their disciples had died in Yin Xuanchu's hands. The Crystal Palace naturally used this to pressure Jinling. The sects in the North Sea were worried that Jinling would not be able to keep them in check, so they turned a blind eye to the Crystal Palace's public intervention. Lu Tianling, Laozu, continued, originally, the sects in the North Sea had been weakened by a lot during the Battle of Frost Island, and the share of the Spirit Stone mine should have changed as well. However, with the current situation, in order not to provoke the sects in the North Sea, we had no choice but to postpone this matter for now. Lu Ping did not know why his teacher would tell him so much, so he asked carefully, then what will our sect do next? Lu Tianling Laozu glanced at him and said, what else can we do? Rest and build up our strength and prepare to go. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, is it because of the treasured ship? Lu Tianling, Laozu, said, the restoration of the treasured ship is the most important thing, but don't forget, if our sect wants to become a large sect, not only do we need the treasured ship and 2 Dharma adepts, there is another important condition, and that is to have 3 Dharma adepts. Lu Ping was stunned for a moment, and said, this disciple understands. The so-called 3 Dharma adepts referred to the first, second, and third generation of Dharma adepts in a large sect. This meant that the inheritance of this large sect would not be broken in a short period of time, and it would not just be a flash in the pan. This was also one of the basic conditions for a large sect to be recognized by the cultivation world. In order for Jinling to become a large sect, after finding the wreckage of the treasured ship of Fei Ling sect, there were only 2 conditions that had yet to be met. One was to have a second Dharma adept, and this was something that no one in the first generation of Jinling could achieve. Tian Shui and Tian Fan, the 2 Laozu's path of cultivation had almost reached the end. Tian Kong, Laozu, did not have much time left to live, and as for Tian Lu and Tian Jiang, the 2 Laozus, it was needless to say. The second Dharma adept's hope had already been placed on Tian Lin, Laozu. The second condition was to have a Dharma adept appear in the 3rd generation of disciples. Currently, among the 3rd generation of disciples in Jinling, only Lu Ping was outstanding. Naturally, Lu Ping would not pass on this responsibility. Lu Tianling Laozu drank a mouthful of honey tea. Lu Ping's eyelids twitched involuntarily. Ever since Lu Ping obtained a nest of amethyst bees, the 10 or so Laozus in Jinling all started drinking amethyst honey tea. Naturally, the amethyst honey was exploited by Lu Ping. Lu Tianling Laozu continued, your uncle Tiancheng has already entered Huangli Island. For the time being, don't go out and focus on your cultivation. Don't bother about Yin Xuanchu's matter. Lu Ping was a little confused. Could it be that teacher was going to put him under house arrest like Ji Xianxian? But wasn't this a little too much? Lu Ping asked carefully, how's Uncle Tiancheng's injury? Is it to guard against the demon race? Lu Tianling Laozu said unhappily, it's to guard against you. If you go out of the sect alone, I'm afraid there will be a few Laozus from various sects coming to kill you. You've made a name for yourself on Frost Island. Even blood azura fell in your hands. Compared to you, what is Yin Xianchu? Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and his expression immediately became a little ugly. It seemed that the current situation in Jinling was worse than he had expected. It was obvious that the various sects were willing to shed all pretense of cordiality with his own sect for some matters. Lu Tianling Laozu saw everything clearly from the side, so he said, you don't have to worry too much. The various sects in the North Sea don't dare to make a move against our sect at the moment. But if there's a chance to surround and kill you, it's very likely that the various sects will do it at all costs. Lu Tianling Laozu paused, then continued, your uncle Tiancheng's origin is damaged, and he lost the chance to advance to the middle Dharma stage. But his strength is not affected, and his injury is not too serious. The reason why he is stationed at Huangli Island is not only to give you time to cultivate in seclusion, but also because your little girlfriend has been recruited. The repair of the treasured ship is extremely important. Not only do we need a large number of artificers to work together, we also need formation masters to repair the formations on the treasured ship. Nephew who is currently a formation master, so the repair of the treasured ship can't be done without her. After exiting the palace of Chonghua, Lu Ping had basically figured out the situation, so he naturally had a plan in his mind. Lu Ping thought for a moment, then called out Wang Qi, who was cultivating in seclusion, from the House of Gold. He said, "You go to Huangli Island first. Your uncle who has left Huangli Island for some matters, and I'm afraid she won't be able to return in a short period of time. I still have other matters to attend to, so I'll leave everything on the island to you for the time being. If there's any trouble, just go find your uncle Tiancheng." Wang Qi nodded and was about to leave, but he was stopped by Lu Ping, who handed him a jade slip and a faintly discernible flying sword. He said, "This flying sword is an invisible sword that I obtained from the Fei Ling sect. There are 4 treasures condensed on it, and that jade slip contains the invisible sword art that I obtained from the Fei Ling sect. I'll pass it on to you now, so when you go down, practice diligently and don't be negligent." Finished speaking, Lu Ping handed a storage pouch to Wang Qi and said, "The Fong siblings and Tseng Wu are in seclusion on Huangli Island. If they advance to the core forging stage, you can take them as registered disciples on behalf of Master, and distribute the items in this storage pouch to the 3 of them." After sending Wang Qi away, Lu Ping walked towards the back of Tianling Mountain. After passing by Fornak's Cavern Ancestors' cave dwelling, Lu Ping descended from a cliff and walked towards a pile of rubble at the bottom of the cliff until he disappeared into the rubble. Chapter 939. Behind the pile of rocks was a huge world within a cave. It was about 1,000 feet tall and about 1,000 feet wide, and it was nearly 10,000 feet deep into the cave. Half of the cave was submerged in seawater. The huge pile of rocks at the periphery might just be an incredibly brilliant illusory rune, but if it was not a cultivator with an incredibly high status in Jinling, they would be helpless before that huge pile of rocks. As soon as Lu Ping entered the cave, Lung Su's voice sounded in his ears, "Show me your jade token." Lu Ping looked up and saw Reverend Xian Shang looking at him with a cold expression. Lu Ping had no choice but to hand over the jade plate at his waist. The jade plate had a seal to identify the cultivators in Jinling's secret technique, and it was related to the life of all the cultivators on the jade plate. Forget about the fact that it was difficult for others to impersonate it. No one other than Lu Ping could impersonate it. Reverend Xian Shang took the jade plate, and a true origin halo flashed in his palm. Reverend Xian Shang returned the jade plate to Lu Ping and said, "Junior brother Xian Ping, this is my duty. Please do not blame me." Lu Ping nodded at Reverend Xian Shang and said, "I also have to congratulate you for improving by leaps and bounds, senior brother." Lu Ping used his divine thought to sense the surging aura around Reverend Xian Shang. It was clear that he had just reached the 8th layer of core forging, and his aura had yet to calm down. Reverend Xian Shang's face twitched, but in the end he did not smile. "I can't compare to you, junior brother Xian Ping." Lu Ping knew that Reverend Xian Shang usually did not smile, which was why he did not say much. He smiled faintly at Reverend Xian Shang, then walked into the depths of the cave along the 2 sides of the waterway. The huge cave might be at the bottom of the cliff, but light was not affected. When Lu Ping walked hundreds of feet forward, he could already see a huge ship docked in the waterway ahead of him. Based on its appearance, what else could it be but the sea chariot of Fei Ling sect, which had once sunk at the bottom of the sea? However, the treasured ship had been roughly cleaned. The sand and rust on the surface of the treasured ship had been removed. The treasured ship had been restored to its original appearance, which made Lu Ping look even more like the accumulation of time. Hundreds of Jinling cultivators were busy on and off the ship. Some of them were cultivators from the Artifact Refinement Hall, and they were the busiest among the hundreds of cultivators. Some of them were busy cleaning the rust on the outer shell of the ship, some were checking if every piece of the ship was still usable, and some were replacing some rusted things on the ship. The most skilled artificers in the artifact refining hall were divided into two groups. One group had opened up a huge artifact refining room on the stone wall of the cave and was busy refining something with flames. Waves of heat caused the originally humid cave to seem hot and dry. The other group of cultivators gathered together to discuss something. They often quarreled due to differences of opinion. Lu Ping even saw a third-generation disciple waving his fist and arguing with a second-generation cultivator about something. Their voices grew louder and louder, and in the end, it was the second-generation cultivator who lost. Before the third-generation disciples could feel proud of themselves, they were attracted by the next topic and joined in the discussion. Lu Ping could clearly sense that all the cultivators in the artifact refining hall had fallen into a state of extreme excitement. For the artificers in the overseas cultivation world, the true pinnacle wasn't refining 1 or 2 tribulation lightning spirit treasures, but being fortunate enough to participate in the construction of a treasured ship. If they could preside over the construction of an important component of a treasured ship, their name could even go down in the cultivation world for thousands of years. The reason why Jiao Yuqiang of the Fei Ling sect was known as the rare artifact refining genius of the North Sea cultivation world in 1,000 years was because he personally made the Golden House and Qian Zhong Su, which could be used as the main cabin of a treasured ship using a large spatial artifact instead of an abode treasure. Before that, the main cabins of treasured ships in the overseas cultivation world were all inlaid with abode treasures. Not only was it extremely difficult to make, but it was also extremely easy to damage, especially when the treasured ship was passing through the stormy ocean. The space there was extremely unstable, and it had a strong destructive effect on a large space like an abode treasure. Usually, every time the treasured ships of the overseas large sects came to the Middle Earth, the abode treasure in the main cabin would undergo a major repair, consuming a large amount of rare spiritual materials. This was because the journey was smooth. If there was a slight carelessness when passing through the stormy ocean, it would not be strange for an abode treasure to be destroyed. Although such a loss was considered serious for the cultivation world of the East Sea or the South Sea, for the barren cultivation world of the North Sea, the destruction of an abode treasure could only be described as disastrous. In view of this, Jiao Yuqiang presided over the refining of a large spatial artifact to replace the abode treasure. How could a spiritual artifact be used to replace an abode treasure? This was simply a joke. From the moment Jiao Yuqiang had this idea, he had been reminded and ridiculed by countless people, whether kind or malicious, but Jiao Yuqiang was unmoved. In the end, he still turned his idea into reality. Previously, although the price paid by the various sects in exchange for the method of Fei Ling sect was much higher than that of embedding the main cabin of the spatial artifact by Fei Ling sect, the spatial artifact was often damaged like the abode treasure. It was even not as good as the abode treasure in the stormy ocean. However, the refining of the spatial artifact was too cheap. It was so cheap that even if it was a one-time thing, it would need to be replaced after entering and exiting the stormy ocean. Therefore, the various sects would rather use the spatial artifact than the abode treasure. Although Fei Ling sect did not ask for an exorbitant price, in the long run, this method was undoubtedly the most cost-effective for Fei Ling sect. Fei Ling sect could continuously earn cultivation resources from the overseas large sects, and the various large sects had no choice but to submit to Fei Ling sect when it came to the treasured ship. Jiao Yuqiang, who was originally just an ordinary refiner, became famous throughout the world because of this. He gained the favor of the entire Fei Ling sect, and from then on, he soared to the sky. Lu Ping could not see any trace of Chen Lian below the treasured ship. He knew that Chen Lian was now a refiner grandmaster. At this moment, he must be together with Tianjiang Laozu and the other first-generation Laozu of the sect. Thus, he flew up to the treasured ship and walked towards the original location of the main cabin. Just as Lu Ping expected, Chen Lian and Tianjiang Laozu were currently together with Tian Xiang, Tian Shui, Tian Fan, and Tian Kong. Besides them, Taoist Xianchen and Hu Lili were also present. The few of them were frowning, as if they had encountered an extremely difficult matter. Seeing Lu Ping coming over, the few of them ignored him. Just when Lu Ping was about to go talk to Chen Lian, he heard Tian Xiang Laozu suddenly say, "If it doesn't work, then we will first embed the flying cloud's heavenly abode here to replace the main cabin. We can't find the method to embed the spatial artifact, but the method to embed the heavenly abode has been obtained by Tai Shen Laozu from someone else." Seeing that Tian Jiang Laozu seemed to have something to say, Tian Xiang Laozu raised his hand to stop him and said, "Junior brother Tian Jiang, old man understands. Right now, we should first repair the treasured ship. As for the loss of the heavenly abode, we can talk about it after our sect becomes a large sect." The Flying Cloud's heavenly abode was one of Jinling's heavenly abode treasures. It was also a place of inheritance for Jinling. The cloud sail in Lu Ping's hand was obtained in this heavenly abode. Although the quality of this treasure wasn't high, and the heavenly abode was mostly filled with undulating mountain ranges, the heavenly abode treasures embedded in the main cabin of the treasured ship were all of the same grade. Due to the damage caused by the stormy ocean, when embedding a heavenly abode as the main cabin, all the sects would try to use a lower-grade heavenly abode to minimize the damage. Tian Jiang Laozu said, "Alright, even if we use the Flying Cloud's heavenly abode as the main cabin, what should we do about the guardian artifact spirit of the treasured ship? Do we have to destroy a second tribulation spirit treasure and nurture the artifact spirit inside into a new guardian artifact spirit?" Tian Kong Laozu was shocked to the side. Jinling only had 2 second tribulation spirit treasures. One was left behind by Tai Shen Laozu to stabilize the fate of the sect, and it had always been kept by Tian Xiang Laozu. Naturally, this treasure would not be destroyed. If they really wanted to nurture a guardian artifact spirit, they would have to destroy the Splitting Mountain Axe. Don't even think about it. The Splitting Mountain Axe and the Old Man's training method are very compatible. With the Splitting Mountain Axe in hand, the Old Man can even fight against the Jade Shura. Even if the Old Man doesn't have long to live, that kid from Tianshan is training the same method as the Old Man. Furthermore, Tianshan might enter the mid-Dharma stage in the future. The Old Man has to leave the Splitting Mountain Axe for him to use. Furthermore, the spirit of the Splitting Mountain Axe has already agreed to recognize Tianshan as its master in the future. Tian Fan Laozu couldn't help but say, "Brother Tian Kong, calm down. Brother Tian Jiang is just saying. Do you think anyone here would be willing to destroy the Splitting Mountain Axe?" Lu Ping listened for a while and understood the situation. He raised his hand and said, "Everyone Laozu, the guardian artifact spirit is with me." Chapter 940. What would it feel like for a core forging adept to be glared at by 4 adepts at the mid-Dharma stage and above, with all of their auras pressing down on him like a flood? At least, Lu Ping didn't feel anything. After the oncoming aura pressed down on Lu Ping, the strange dragon in the core space only raised its head slightly, and the aura that was enough to scare a normal core forging adept to the point of incontinence disappeared. Looking at the smiling Lu Ping, the few Laozu suppressed their shock. Tianxiang Laozu was the first to ask, "When did this happen? Why didn't you say so earlier?" Tanjiang Laozu, however, said, "That shouldn't be the case. With the current state of the ship, there's no way the artifact spirit could maintain its spirituality for 4,000 years. It should have disappeared a long time ago." Lu Ping glanced at Tianjiang Laozu. With this master craftsman present, it was not easy for Lu Ping to make up a good lie. "When I was still in the blood condensation stage, I participated in a trip to Fei Ling Island under the recommendation of Uncle Master Tianlin. I obtained 8 spirit forging pills and a spatial instrument, Qianzhong Millet. The artifact spirit, Ruyu, was in the Qianzhong Millet. This time, I was able to discover the wreckage of the ship because of Ruyu's reminder." Qianzhong Millet? Could this be the spatial instrument that was embedded in the ship? Lu Ping shook his head and said, "It's only a part of it. The real spatial instrument on the ship should be the House of Gold, and the Qianzhong Millet is only the key to the formation of the fake terrain in the House of Gold. It's also the key to the House of Gold being able to lead the large spirit vein into it." Tianjiang Laozu was indeed a master craftsman. Hearing this, he immediately thought of something and said, two combined spatial instruments. Could it be that the secret of the main cabin of the spatial instrument that Jiao Yuqiang made is hidden in these two spatial instruments? Lu Ping shook his head and said, I found the House of Gold in Laozu's abode in Zhongshuan, East Sea. At that time, the two spatial artifacts merged naturally. I don't know how it happened, but I don't know how it happened. Tianjiang Laozu still wanted to ask something, only to hear Tianjiang Elephant Laozu suddenly asking, that weapon spirit Ryu has already recognized you as its master and was refined by you? Lu Ping embarrassedly hesitated for a moment before replying, yes. Tian Fan, Tian Kong, and the rest of the Laozus looked at each other helplessly. Tian Xiang Laozu then sighed and said, you need to increase your level of practice as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the ship sets sail in the future, without a mid-dharma level of practice, you will be under a lot of pressure. Because of the uniqueness of the artifact spirit guarding the treasured ship, the person who was acknowledged by the artifact spirit was usually the true controller of the treasured ship. Only then could they unleash all of the treasured ship's power. Hence, when the treasured ships of the overseas cultivators set sail, it was usually the Dharma adepts who would control the treasured ship's artifact spirit. However, in history, there were cases where the treasured ship's artifact spirit automatically recognized a master. In that case, although the treasured ship could still set sail without the control of a Dharma adept, the power of the treasured ship could not be unleashed in an extremely smooth manner. If not for Lu Ping's status in Jinling, Tian Xiang Laozu would probably not hesitate to forcefully seize the artifact spirit in Lu Ping's hands to control the artifact spirit. It was also because of Lu Ping's current level of practice that Tian Xiang Laozu was extremely confident in Lu Ping's future achievements. That was why he silently accepted the fact that Lu Ping had refined the treasured ship's artifact spirit. Tian Shui Laozu, who was standing at the side, had long become impatient. She said, all right, after talking for so long, no one is blaming you for refining the artifact spirit. Take out that artifact spirit called Ru Yu and your golden house and let us have a look. Lu Ping scratched the back of his head and said, I still have to report to the few Laozu. That golden house and Qianzhong millet have already been used by this disciple as a spiritual herb garden. There are some treasures that this disciple has meticulously collected over the years. However, Ryu seems to have some memory of the method to forge this spatial artifact and embed it into the main cabin of the treasured ship. Can the few Laozu see if you can forge another spatial artifact and embed it into the main cabin? Tan Shui Laozu immediately frowned as she scolded, you bastard! Aren't you just making your own plans? The artifact spirit has already been refined by you. In the future, this treasured ship will be under your control. Who would dare to take advantage of you? Lu Ping's face turned red from Tian Shui Laozu's scolding. He hastily summoned Ru Yu out before pulling Chen Lian away. Behind him, the few Laozu and Taoist Xian Chen were already chattering non-stop as they questioned Ru Yu. Since Ru Yu had already been refined by Lu Ping, she was very clear about what she should and shouldn't say. Thus, Lu Ping was relieved. Chen Lian hurriedly shook off Lu Ping's arm and said, what are you doing? What are you doing? I still have many things to ask that artifact spirit of yours. Lu Ping said, Ryu will temporarily stay here. You can ask her whenever you want. Right now, I have something more important to ask you. Only then did Chen Lian calm down and said, what is it? Tell me. Lu Ping threw the jade letter that recorded the refining method of shapeless sword to Chen Lian and said, take a look at this. Chen Lian received the jade letter suspiciously and scanned it with his divine sense. Instantly, delight appeared on his face as he said, the complete refining method of shapeless sword, the complete 9 forbidden treasured treasures? Lu Ping smiled complacently and said, if it's not something urgent, I will look for you. How is it? It can be considered a pleasant surprise, right? This shapeless sword secret art and its refining method are very famous in Fei Ling sect. Although it's only a great divine sword art, this sword art coupled with the shapeless flying sword is something that can't be exchanged for even a supreme divine ability. With this secret art to refine shapeless sword, who in the entire Jinling would dare to show disrespect to a master refiner like you? After Chen Lian became a tool refining grandmaster, There was once a second-generation disciple who ordered Chen Lian to refine spirit-nurturing treasures for them as if he was on a mission. A dignified tool-refining grandmaster was ordered around, and in the end, it was the Sky River Patriarch who came out to reprimand him. In the end, it was still a matter of strength. Although Chen Lian had advanced to the late core forging realm, his strength could only be regarded as outstanding among cultivators of the same level. Although he could condense spirit-nurturing treasures and refine spirit-nurturing treasures, he didn't have a trump card. If it was Lu Ping, how many people in the entire Jinling would dare to show off in front of him? Chen Lian was surprised and said, "You want to make the shapeless sword's secret art public to the cultivators of the sect?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "Half of it. After all, this shapeless sword's secret art is a unique skill. Du Feng, Zhong Jian, and Ma Yu are all sword cultivators, and we also have a few disciples who practice swordsmanship. This shapeless sword's secret art should be very attractive to them. When the time comes, we can leave the specific measures to the Laozu in the sect to deal with. In any case, this shapeless sword's secret art can't be popularized." With that, Lu Ping handed the Aquaslite sword to Chen Lian and said, "The Aquaslite sword's grade has been improved by you. Now, it only lacks one spirit-nurturing treasure restriction to become a spirit-nurturing grade magic treasure. Try to improve it as much as possible and see if you can condense the remaining 3 spirit-nurturing treasures." Whenever Lu Ping handed over a magic treasure to Chen Lian to improve, it was usually when he was about to go into seclusion or when he didn't have a big task to complete. Lu Ping was surprised and asked, "You're going into seclusion again?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "Yes. Just keep this a secret." Chen Lian was even more shocked when he saw how serious Lu Ping was. Since Lu Ping wanted him to keep it a secret, this time seclusion was naturally extremely important. Thinking about Lu Ping's current cultivation, what could be more important than seclusion to condense the Dharma idol? Chen Lian's lips moved. He originally wanted to ask more, but in the end he swallowed his words. Lu Ping reached out and pulled the House of Gold off his neck and handed it to Chen Lian. He said, "I'll give the House of Gold to you. Although Ruyu knows many secrets about the main cabin of the treasure ship, she doesn't have the real thing, so it will take a lot of effort to refine it. Take this House of Gold and study it yourself. Try to comprehend the secret of how Jiao Yuqiang embedded the spatial magic treasure into the treasure ship. That way, my House of Gold won't be forcefully embedded into the treasure ship. I don't want the treasures I've collected all these years to be exposed in broad daylight." Chen Lian couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you afraid that I'll find out what you've hidden inside?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "I've set up some restrictions in some important places. Unless you're a Dharma adept, with your current cultivation, you won't be able to open these restrictions. However, these restrictions won't hinder you from studying the House of Gold and Qianzhong Millet." Chen Lian smiled and said, "I knew that you've prepared everything. Don't worry, I won't reveal the House of Gold to anyone." Lu Ping smiled and nodded. He chatted with Chen Lian for a while and especially instructed him to impart the shapeless sword technique to Yin Xianchu when there was a chance. Then he hurriedly bid farewell and left the cave. Chen Lian put the House of Gold in his sleeve and walked back. He saw Grandmaster Tianjiang Laozu walking over quickly. Seeing that Chen Lian was alone, he quickly asked, "Where's that kid? Where did he go?" Chen Lian shook his head and said, "He left, but he didn't say where he was going." Tianjiang Laozu cursed in a low voice, "That brat ran away really fast." Then he asked Chen Lian, "Did he say anything?" Chen Lian answered honestly, "He obtained the complete treasure to forge the shapeless sword and handed it over to me. There's nothing else." Tianjiang Laozu walked back and Chen Lian hurriedly followed. Tianjiang Laozu said that artifact spirit was very detailed, but he didn't have a real object to refer to. When will he be able to forge a suitable spatial artifact? Whatever, if he can't do it by then, that kid will take out the House of Gold and embed it. In the depths of the sea, Lu Ping's water escape technique was getting more and more exquisite as he moved towards the southwest. When he reached the boundary of the earth, Lu Ping placed the water moon avoidance pearl on his head and dived down to a depth of 90,000 feet. Then he reopened the small cave that he had opened on the stone wall at the bottom of the cliff. This time, Lu Ping didn't have the 7-colored restriction breaking talisman with him. However, Lu Ping's current cultivation wasn't something that could be compared to when he had yet to condense the lightning tribulation water and condense a 9th-grade golden core. With just a 6-colored restriction breaking talisman, Lu Ping reopened the protective shield of the teleportation formation and threw down a highest grade spirit stone to activate the formation. When his vision became clear again, Lu Ping had already stepped onto Fei Ling Island for the 3rd time. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.